Yay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good
Morning.
morning. Welcome to A Seat at the Table. It has been 5 years, as we've discovered, since the last time we've had this amazing meeting of the minds amongst us beautiful, talented, and gifted Black women. My name is Kendrah Butler-Waters, and 5 years ago, I'd asked some friends who were all um, just brilliant Black women who were a part of my friendship circle um, to just come and have a meeting of the minds. It was at the height of, we were at the start of a pandemic. Um, Everything was imploding in our country racially, and it was at that time that I felt we just needed an outlet, a meeting of the minds. And so for this iteration, if we could have everyone go around and introduce yourselves, just give us a quick 1 minute splurb about your genius, and tell us why you wanted to come back in 2025. And then I'll turn it over to our fearless leader, soon to be Dr. Ninah Bell.
All right, who would like to go first and introduce themselves? Well, Kendra, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your genius and what you do?
All right, Ninah. So I'm Kendrah Butler-Waters, educator, musician, composer, all those wonderful things, wife, mother, daughter, friend. And I'm just honored to finally, it took us years to come back. And it just feels so good that we're back together again. And I'm happy that Ninah really took lead, that you took lead to really make sure that we executed this. So thank you.
Well, I'm so giddy. I'll just take one for the team. Good morning, everybody. It's your girl Amber E, and yes, the tea is piping. We got some stuff to do today. I love the phrasing my genius. My name is Amber Earls. I am a writer, I'm a vocalist, I am an editor, CEO of Ready Writer Publishing House and Editing Services LLC, a company I inherited from my mother. Also leader of Glowing Embers Ministries and LLC. I do a little bit of everything, and I'll get more into that later. But to answer the question why I decided to come back, it's because I actually rewatched our last roundtable this morning. And there is something so powerful about when Black women get into a space and speak life to energy. And I love these women. They're some of the most brilliant women that I know. I love me a good chat with some sister queens, and I am looking forward to all the tea, all the health, and all the healing. Let's get it done. Mm-hmm.
Love it.
I'll go. I'm Teresa Miller. I am like super excited that we're doing this again. Um, I am involved in a lot of things. I work in information technology, I work in the arts, and yeah, just excited to be here with these beautiful ladies. It's just a joy to do this again. I swear, and I want to do it. I want to continue to keep doing this again and again and again.
Hey all, I am Joy Gordon. Last time I was Joy Blunt and I recently got married. So now I am a wife, I am a mother, and I am a principal. And I'm very proud to do each of those roles. I am here today to just converse with my girlfriends. There's been a lot going on and a lot to catch up on. So we're here.
Hi, finally got the camera going. Good morning, everyone. I did find the slide, John. Sorry, I've never had to do that before. Anyway, Shakera Jones. I am a vocalist musician. I'm also an educator, currently a dean of students for 7th and 8th grade at Grover Cleveland Mastery Charter School. I love what I do. I feel like it's my ministry. And yeah, I wanted to come back because I enjoyed it the first time and it was a good time, you know, good energy. And I enjoy a very peaceful, chill lifestyle. And this wasn't going to be a heavy lift. Like, it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it because I'm going to be resting. No, like, this is, you know, a part of like a slow morning. And I just appreciate you asking me.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren Putty White. I am a dancer, choreographer, dance educator. I'm a mama, I'm a wife, I am a God-fearing woman, and I am just really excited to be here again too. I was honored to get invited the first time, so thanks for the re-invitation. And I just love being surrounded by people that I don't really get to see otherwise, but just like, you know, kind of like follow on social media to keep up with all the amazing things that they're doing. And just to be in the same space with such powerhouses and being able to step away from all those roles for a second and just be in this space, you know, and converse with one another. Because I just love hearing all the wonderful genius, as Kendrah says, that's coming from each of these individuals. So yay.
All right. Well, my name is Ninah Bell, and I am many things. My genius is many things. I'm a scholar, a student, a mom, a sister friend, a soror, a writer, a shy artist who never shares her artwork, a published poet, Black woman, queen, manifester, everything. Why I wanted to come back, one, it had been way too long. And I felt like, you know, we all keep in touch online and in digital space, but I think there's something to be said. And I think, Amber, you referenced that earlier, when we come together, even in this format. And I think, you know, now more than ever, Black people, we're going to be in need of community and establishing and reestablishing safe spaces, especially for Black women online. So, you know, I hope that we don't wait 5 years again. So yeah. All right, so let's get started because we're here for a good time, but not a long time. Okay, so we're going to cover a couple of different topics. We have about 7 or 8, very informal, and we'll start off with our, I call it our icebreaker question, Black women and girlhood. So in 2017, the Georgetown Center on Poverty and Inequality published Girlhood Interrupted, which was the first study of its kind, which quantified the experiences of Black girls in relation to how the world around them saw them, their social perceptions and attitudes towards Black girls ages 0 to 18. And keep in mind 0. So this study was published in 2017, and overwhelmingly it found out, you know, things that we all know because we're all Black women. We've all been little Black girls, where Black girls are found to be in need of less support, less love, less encouragement, that they are by default resilient and strong, that they know more about sex and all these things, right? For those who are on the panel, tell us a little bit about your girlhood and your experience as a young Black girl. And being the Black woman that you are today, what's something that you would have told your younger self in your girlhood? And that can start with anybody. Actually, let's say, this is what I do to my students. They hate me for it. Teresa, we'll start with you.
Um, what was the question again? Because I'm thinking about something and I just want to word it the way I have it in the order that I have it in my brain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about your experience as a girl in your younger years, in your girlhood, And what's one thing that you would tell your younger self, knowing who you are now and the things that you've experienced as a woman?
What I experienced as a little person growing up, a lot of what the article you were addressing, I experienced a lot of having less support as a child, as a little black girl, and also experiencing not just in my household, but a lot of the households where a lot of my other friends who were girls, they experienced the same thing. And what they experienced was that their brothers got a lot of leeway and they had to, and the little girls had to just make it on your own. Do it, learn how to do something on your own. So if your mother wasn't active in your life, then you had to basically fend for yourself as a kid, as a child.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And I see a lot of that now as an adult. I see a lot of things that I experienced. I realized a lot of things that I experienced as a child, I should have had support from my mother and my father, and I didn't. And a lot of that, you can't place the blame on them because they didn't know how to do either. So what they did, they left you to learn what you needed to do as a girl in school or other neighbors or other friends. So what I also would, what I would tell myself now, what I know now, if I could talk to myself back then, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And you are going to change for the better. And everything that you think is hard now, things are going to be even harder later. But it's like realizing that the things that you know that you can prevent, you just telling myself there's going to be some things that you don't know that's going to pop up and you're going to be able to handle it. Mostly because of how we were raised. Like, to figure out on your own. So part of being raised like that was, a lot of it was not so great because of being a little Black girl, but some of it was being introduced to the unknown at such a young age prepared me for the unknown now.
Yeah. I love that. That preparation.
Yeah.
I love that. Would
Even
anyone
though
else
it
like to
wasn't
take
good,
that
it was
question?
preparation, yeah.
Right. Because
Yeah.
when we get older, we see the purpose in the pain and begin to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, you do.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Anyone else? Amber, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yeah. So my childhood was a little different. My parents were pastors. I went to modeling school when I was 4. I took a ballet when I was 6. I did it for 5 years. And I stopped dancing ballet because when my body started changing, I was very insecure about it. So I gave it up. I, again, also being raised by parents in ministry, you get exposed to a lot of adult stuff at an early age. And to piggyback off of Teresa's point about your parents not knowing what they don't know, when you are especially a Black girl who is very precocious, who is very wise beyond her years and can have in 2nd grade a conversation with someone who is 25 to 30 years older than you, it can sometimes give off the veil that you are totally developed. But often it means that you've had to carry a lot at a young age and have to know how to navigate through it. And that's kind of what my childhood was. I don't have any regrets, but one thing I didn't do was fit in with my peers very well. Because again, I'm in the 2nd grade going, hello, this is the Earls residence. I'm sorry. Hello, this is the Earls residence. This is Amber. How can I help you? And they're going, your daughter speaks so well. And so it was, my growing up was knowing from a very early age that I was exposed to a lot of privilege, and I thought differently. I loved reading. I was into the arts, and I had a mother who, when I said to her, why don't Black people speak a language when I'm in the third grade? She said, we may not have a language, but we have a sound. And she gave me books and she gave us our history, so on and so forth. And yet, because I was fed so much and because I didn't have any ulterior motives, I often felt like I wasn't good enough. And so my light shone on its own, but I was very intimidated by my own light. And so despite me being outgoing and articulate and whatever you want to call it, I still shrunk back because I knew somebody wasn't going to like that part of me. And when you're that different, you either go one of two directions. You either embrace it and say, if you don't like it, not my church, not my house, you don't have to come to my car. I don't care. Or you kind of go in the opposite direction and go, so if I'm this different, then what do I do so that I can be normal? And it's taken me a long time to get to a place where I'm finally comfortable in my own skin. So what I would say to my younger self, as cliche as it is, I would say, Amber, your mother is right. You to just do you and love you, and the folk who will absorb you and love on you, you'll love back. And those who can't, and I know a lot of us heard this as kids, they have their own problems. So I would say to my younger self and any other of the little Black academics like I was, do you, baby, because you have a gift. Embrace it.
I love that. And I think a lot of us, especially if you grew up, and I think all of us on the panel grew up as like the gifted Black child or the good little Black girl, and there was so much pressure to perform. And then there's also pressure by your peers who want to fit in. Like, oh, why you talk like you white? Why you like that? Why you, right? And it does, like Amber said, you do either go either one way where you shrink yourself or you embrace it, right? Would anyone else like to tell their younger self something before we move on to the next topic?
I would say to my younger self, prove them wrong, right? So similar to Amber, very supportive parents, but my peers are very different. I got accepted into a magnet high school. For ninth grade, I had to take a test, got accepted. Great high school. I was one of 8 Black people. I was one of 5 Black girls. But yet everyone looked at me to represent the entire culture when I was learning about my own culture at the same time, mind you, not in school, but I was learning. So I couldn't even read, really. I was that child that got passed along, couldn't read, but I found a way. My mother said it may take you twice as long to get half the distance. Just keep going. So to my younger self who learned how to read, who now has 2 master's degrees, I'd say continue to prove them wrong.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love
Tina,
that.
do you mind if I add two?
Yes,
I don't know. I
please.
know we're not trying to be here all night, but
No, but I mean, we here. If you in the Northeast region, it's snowing. So where you going anyway? You in the house. We here for a
why
good
not?
time.
Well, I think the beauty in which everyone was talking about the support of your family, your parents, and I think one of my biggest takeaways in this season of my life of adulthood as a Black woman is really the power of saying no. And I think, being raised by a single parent, it's like the buck stops there, and having a strong Black female single parent who, loves God and loves people and all of those types of things that typically that type of personality, that nurturer who is inbred in us, we just got to take care of everybody.
Right.
And leave ourselves for last.
Right.
And it wasn't until just life be life and going through life and experience that it is okay to say no, whether you're in a professional setting or with family or with friends who are usurping your spirit from you. that it's okay to say, no, I'm not going to take on this extra situation in a professional situation because I'm one of two Black people in a professional situation. No, I cannot develop the Black History program because I'm one of two. Um, no, I cannot take on this extra situation in
right.
my family situation because I need to take care of X, Y, and Z.
That's right.
And so if I had to tell my younger self, anything, it would be it's okay to say no because people will still love you even if you say no to them. And that is a professional, personal, familial, mental health boundary that it's okay to say that.
Yes.
And, I have been in conversations with my mom and I said, Mom, sometimes, she's a septuagenarian. I said, even still, it's okay to put up boundaries with people that you may deem as friends because they are taking some of your light away from you.
Yes.
It's okay to say no.
Yes.
So I think, from young Black girls to elders, there's still lessons that we're learning. And that's, I want to say, for the last 5 years, that's been my biggest adult takeaway that I wish I had told myself as a youngster is to say no sometimes and that it's okay to. And it's
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And no is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
Like it has a whole period at the end and sometimes an exclamation point. I grew up in North Jersey in Montclair. It's a pretty much affluent, suburb of like Newark and East Orange and the whatnots. I've been performing since I was little, and my mom totally encouraged it. Like my parents never said, no, 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 that's too much. Don't sing, don't play that record over and over again, on repeat and be singing. Like, like they completely like encouraged me, right?
Right.
So growing up as a Black girl in Montclair, like it's like, so like there's Montclair, then there's Upper Montclair. Upper Montclair is like where the people who got like lots of money, that's where they live. But everybody else, is just like working class regular. But the school system was like amazing. Like I have friends who I've been friends with since like kindergarten, who I'm still friends with, and we're all like in our 40s, 47, right? I think growing up, like there was one instance I was in third grade and the music teacher, we were doing this performance. And so he had white kids on one side and Black kids and brown kids on one side. And the song was called something about like looking through your eyes. I see your face, Amber. I see your face. Stop making that face.
I didn't say anything.
But anyway, it's like
90s Heal the World.
Yeah, something like that. But either way, the song was really beautiful. But my sister friend Solange, she is Latina and white. And so she didn't know where to stand, right? So like she's a brown girl, I'm a brown girl. And like I felt in that moment in third grade, I felt like torn because it's like, okay, I'm on the Black side, and the song, like literally the song was really beautiful, but it was like the separation of us, right? And I think growing up with like a really solid village, like the Joneses and the Reeds, so my dad's side and my mom's side, like there were lots of grandmothers, lots of aunties, lots of uncles. So lots of examples of like how to be, and also some examples of not how to be, because everybody got an auntie, that walk around with a razor in her cheek. Just saying, like who'll cut you if you look at her wrong. So I think for me, growing up was cool. I had lots of sister friends. I'm my mother's only child, although I have siblings. And I spent a lot of time with them and their family and my grandmothers and my, great grandmothers and lots of elderly people who would babysit me. So like lots of elders, like I love me a good elder, like somebody who, just sit and watch and look and throw a little sage advice, so I try to be that for my students, even though like I'm not their grandma. But I think as an adult, the idea of that's not my ministry, which is basically saying no. I started using that phrase like about probably during pandemic, like 2020. Like, yeah, that's not my ministry because I sleep like 8 to 11 hours a night. Like I be in the bed. And like, when the downloads come, like that's God, spirit team, ancestors telling you what you need to be doing for the day. So if I wake up and I've downloaded and I've accepted what my assignment is for the day, and then someone comes in like, oh, can you? And they ask because they know that you can, and they know that you will deliver. You know what I'm saying? They know that what you touch will turn to gold. So I started telling people, yeah, that's not my ministry. That's not what God gave for me today. And they would look at me and I would look at them and they would be looking at me like I was going to change my mind. I'm not changing my mind. I'm not changing my mind. That's not my ministry. That's not what God gave for me today. That didn't download for me. That's not what I saw in my dreams. Because if I dream something, then I know I'm supposed to do it on that day. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? Because God said, go do that thing. And if
That's
you don't
right.
do that thing, then you're going to end up like Jonah swallowed by a big fish. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be a Jonah. I'm going to go to Nineveh and tell the people what they're supposed to know. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to tell you what God told me to tell you. But if I had to tell my younger self something, I would probably tell little Shakera, like, just keep going.
Yeah.
Because like as an adult and like having an artist brain, like you wake up and you're just like, oh well, I haven't written anything, I haven't composed anything, I haven't said anything, I haven't performed anything. And just knowing that like the talent that you've been given or the resources that God's spirit team and the ancestors have given you, they're lifelong. Like it's not a complete destination, it's a journey. So I would tell her like keep going. I mean, I used to do hair modeling. I was, runway walking and auditioning for videos in New York when I was a kid. And some of it panned out and some of it didn't. The things that didn't, of course, you always feel like a failure, like, oh man, like they didn't want me. um but I would say just keep going, and yeah, it's going to be fine. And also, just like the other sister said, it's totally okay to say no. Like my mother used to say to me when I was a kid, she used to say, when in doubt, do without.
Mm.
And as like a 10-year-old, I'm like, what the hell is this lady talking about? But she was telling me to tap into my intuition. You know what I'm saying? Like, lady, what you talking about? And on top of that, she's a paralegal. My
Mm-hmm.
mom is and has been for like my whole life. So she knows like legalese and all these, different things in any events and all the, whatever, how they talk. And when she would say that to me, when in doubt, do without, I would be like, but that's what I wanted to do, right?
That's right.
But she was asking me to pause and think about, was there a feeling of maybe I shouldn't? And when I tell you that phrase has saved me so much heartache, like whether it's going out somewhere or meeting people or, doing whatever, like when in doubt, do without. So I would definitely tell my little self that. And also, keep going because it's gonna, like, things are gonna be fine. It may not feel like it's gonna be fine, but it's fine.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that I appreciate the village that was around me growing up, um, because it definitely helped. Like I've always been an independent child, and um, some family members didn't really appreciate the independence. You know what I mean? Because they had multiple children, and I guess maybe they
Mhm.
didn't want their kids to be like forging like a fiery path in the opposite direction, especially like when you add like spirituality or religion into the mix. Because there's a certain, when you're raised a certain way, there's a certain path you're supposed to take. And
Mhm.
I've never, I can't remember ever really wanting to be on said path, but like walking adjacent, like, okay, I'll take that with me on my journey. I'll take this. I don't want to take that kind of thing. But yeah, I would say when in doubt, do without. And like, it's okay to forge your own path.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. I think I would tell my younger self, ooh, so many things. I would tell my younger self that eventually we will be okay. Eventually we will feel safe, like in the world, but also within ourselves and within our minds. Because sometimes we can be safe in the world, but up here, woo. Um, I would tell my younger self that eventually we will learn to be kinder to ourselves. Um, I would tell my younger self that a lot of the trauma and really crazy, wild experiences that I went through as a teen, and in my 20s and somewhat in my early 30s would set the foundation for things that I'm doing now as a woman, as a mother, as a scholar, as a, future doctor, social worker, all these things. And that all that I have experienced will be utilized as a tool and a pathway of liberation, not only for myself, but for younger women that are coming up behind me. And so I've found a lot of refuge and solace in that. That despite what I've gone through as a young girl, as a teen, as a younger woman, it's giving me the tools and knowledge that I can pass along to someone else, in the hopes of decreasing or mitigating the likelihood of them experiencing the same thing. That's what I would tell my younger self. And also, like, chill out. Like, when you get to college, like, calm down. It's okay. You don't have to dress up for the club at your 8:40 class. Where are you going? It's 8:40. Why are you wearing stilettos? What stilettos pumps in the club at 8:40 in the morning? Calm down, girl. But that's what I would tell my younger self.
Girl, don't let it play in your face.
Listen, calm down. Just go to class. Like, you don't just go to class. Temple Ninah was wild. Kendrah, no. All right, let's move on. Black women in the workplace and leadership. What have been our experiences in terms of how we navigate the workplace, whether it's in education, corporate, nonprofit, tech? What has been our experiences, especially if you have been or currently are in a position of leadership or management? And how have some of our experiences in the workplace been with our elder Black women? And what has that intergenerational experience been? I have a million stories, but I'll let other folks. Amber.
Yes, but
Let's start with you. What has been your experience as a Black woman in the workplace? And also in a position of leadership, because I know your mom passed down the family business. What has that been like for you?
There is a question in the chat that I don't know if we'll ever back to it, but it's an interesting perspective that we might want to address at some point. I don't know.
Let me find it. Where's the question?
How did
their fathers impact what you tell yourself?
Y'all want to nibble on that, or do we want to circumvent?
Let's nibble on it. My father is my favorite. Oh, okay. All right. We're gonna come back.
Yeah, let's come back.
We can come back to that when we talk about Black women love and relationships.
That's why I love smart people. Don't make this hard for me. Okay. So again, in referencing the last video, we have all come a long way.
Yes.
And I think we really deserve to get our flowers in this space now, while we're just conversing with each other in a live space, because that should be congratulated. That in the last 4 years, 5 years, what have you, we've faced a lot and we endured. Yeah. And I just really think that should be acknowledged and congratulated. Come on, Sister Queens, we did our thing.
We did.
I'm segueing into saying it like this. When I was looking at that video of myself from the last chat, that woman was, and some people have already touched on this, resilient to a fault. A lot of folk have been saying embrace the no. I would amend that and say embrace the maybe, or embrace the pause, because sometimes no is an absolute, but someone put it no with an exclamation point at the end, or no as a period. I'd say no with an ellipses, because that could lead to something else. When I was in that video, I was in supervision. I was working for a nonprofit organization that helped folk out with public benefits, and I did that for 5 years, and I was burning out. I was trudging on. I was fighting the good fight. I was meeting my deadlines. Over time, I was even feeling like if I don't do my best, then my people aren't going to be proud of me. And if I don't keep trudging on, then my team won't know what to do. And if I don't do it, if I can't do and what have you, and going and so on and so forth, then I can't. And when I went and I looked at my mother's example, who really did the same thing, who was such a self-starter and a go-getter, and again, an entrepreneur, and she worked in a law firm where she was either the only woman or the only Black woman or the only Black person. So I inherited a lot of that go-getter energy. And when I had my stroke in 2022, and I woke up that morning and my left side was totally numb, and I'm having to hold my mouth, and there's tears coming down my face. And the first thing I say is, I can't afford speech therapy. You have an aha moment and you go, wait a minute. I am pushing and pushing, trying to do right about business, working good in corporate, where we've been taught, whether this is true or otherwise, that we have to be as good, if not better, to get the same respect as our counterparts, no matter whether it burns us out or not. You lean on your sisters, you stay hydrated, you get to God, whatever it is, you keep going. And if you burn out, you pick yourself up off the floor, take some Klonidine, hydralazine, labetalol, and glipizide if you have diabetes, and you keep going forward. And when you're dead at 64, that's okay, because most of our folk don't even know that high blood pressure is a form of heart disease. And so to fast forward, this past August, after working at my company for 5 years, I was laid off. And up until that, after the stroke, I took a month off. I went back to working face-to-face with my clients instead of being in leadership, did that for a couple of years. And all of a sudden, I'm like, the safety net of a job was gone. And so I'm now in the very system that I help people apply for 5 years, SNAP benefits, unemployment, Medicaid, so on and so forth. And I really had to humble myself. At the same time, all the ambitions that I put on the back burner, I'll sing at some point. I'll edit the book at some point. I'll try something at some point. Now all of my ambitions are in my face. And there's a book that I highly recommend called The Black Girl's Guide to Financial Freedom. It's by Paris Woods, who's a 2-time Harvard grad, who came from the inner city and whose mama was trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, who after she got her master's from Harvard Law, had all this debt. She's now a correspondent for NPR and didn't know how to get out of it because no one in her world had gone to college. And what she talks about is once you change the mindset of your finances, you change the mindset of how you navigate the world. In finding my own way of looking at money, I looked at my mother's business and I said, I can work this out. I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Kendrah Butler, who is the president of the Over the Goal Women's Business Academy, in which I am a graduate. It really changed my paradigm about how I look at business. So whether I go into another 9-to-5 or not, even if it's easier and keeps my lights on or whatever the case may be, I still have to be a leader in my own right. Because at the end of the day, if I don't do that, I have myself to blame. And as someone's point from earlier, we, especially as Black academics or artists, we have all these things we want to do. And where one person said, you'll get to it eventually, for me, it was an excuse. Like, I'll get to it eventually. I'll publish the book at some point. I'll edit the book at some point. I'll sing the song behind the microphone at some point. It's okay. And now I'm face to face with, I think some point is now. And I kind of have to attack my ambitions. But how do I do that while I'm still breaking generational curses about how to handle money or how to handle being okay with being a leader in my own right? How do I now address my business acumen and say, what do I want to net by the end of 2025? Who are my angel investors? What do I do about time management? So this is a long way of saying that since we last met, I went from being a person who was just luck, and I don't really believe in luck, but who was blessed enough to just work a good job, to now looking at business and no matter how I appropriate this, I have to be my own boss. And I have to take what I've learned from life, from Over the Goal, from my elders, who sometimes teach you stuff that you are not going to learn in a book and are going to teach you things that are they may not have a TikTok account. And they might even have a smartphone and not even care, but they will teach you how to make $1 out of 15 cents. And you better know, because as the world is changing now and we're looking at cryptocurrency, we better know how to be resourceful. So, and at the same time, sometimes they will give you advice that might be and I'm gonna say this as carefully as I can, a little dated. So you have to know how to read the room and read it with respect. And so now that I'm on this phase of my life's journey with looking at business and starting 2 podcasts, I'm going to give a shout out to Tea Tuesday and to one I just finished that's all about finance and poverty, riches and wealth. I'm looking at business as something that I deserve and something that I have to work for and not have to dial back and say, I'll get there. It's like, no, I'm here and I deserve to be here.
I love that. I absolutely, absolutely love that and resonate so much with that, especially around, navigating your own past experiences and also trying to step away and break free from generational experiences in connection to wealth and money and stepping into power and leadership. Like, yes to all of that, all of that. I know for me in 2020, where was I working? Oh yeah, I was working for the city of Baltimore for the mayor's office of homeless services. And it was COVID, so we're all at home. And I remember, we had just when COVID hit, I was just hired. And, I was new to Baltimore and I'm pivoting in my career. And, I'm here in this Black ass city at this Black ass mayor's office. And my expectation was, oh, I'm in this super political Black space. This is going to be excellent and amazing. And it was not. I quickly learned that even in hyper Black spaces, the experiences or the threats rather of internalized racism and anti-Blackness and misogynoir and patriarchy and all these things will still and can be even more prevalent in Black spaces than in predominantly white workplace spaces. And that was very difficult for me to navigate, especially in a digital space. But what I learned from that compared to now, and now I'm working for a really excellent nonprofit that is Black founded, Black owned, very forthcoming and outright in their Black identity. Like we play dominoes at team, like just a very super duper positive Black space. Like I reference my agency as the Wakanda of nonprofits here in Baltimore because it really is a super safe and affirming space if you are a Black person or a person that's interested in liberating Black people. But to get to that from 2020 was an incredible heartbreaking experience. I think, a lot of my most heartbreaking experiences in relation to Black women have been in the workplace, unfortunately. I it's hard because you know where it's coming from, especially if you are someone who's very well read or very, tapped in or in tune. You understand how, white supremacy and racism and systemic oppression and all these things, right? And insecurity and all of these things kind of make this really weird soup of, and excuse my language, fuck shit, right? And so you understand all of these things. And to some level, you're giving a level of grace and forgiveness, but it's still incredibly hard because you are having this experience with someone who looks just like you, right? With someone who, I know for me, 9 times out of 10, not only is someone who looks just like you, but is older than you and has probably gone through the same thing you have. And so you're looking to this elder in the workplace like a place of refuge. And, I've had 2 experiences. On one end, I've had beautiful and amazing workplace moms who, I still am close to this day. And they are my moms, like through and through, right? And then I've had another experience of wanting that connection with an elder Black woman in the workplace. And it's like, you young hussy, get out of here. Right. like, whoa, it's daddy. Like, why are you so mean? you know? And it's been like this very weird space. And it's unfortunate. It's truly unfortunate because I like to think that, especially in our age group, I think my daughter said that we are geriatric millennials. Having a teen is it's crazy. Right? I think in our age group, we are recognizing that and being very intentional about stepping away from that, and calling in elders who support us while also supporting younger sisters that are coming behind us. And I love that for us because I think that's very healing, being able to do that, and a tool of liberation, right? And like freeing ourselves. But incredibly hard to you know, respect your elders in the workplace when you want to turn a table over, or knock a few canes over. It's hard. Anyone else want to touch on their experience in the workplace?
Yeah, I'll touch, or maybe I'll tap.
Tab.
I was urged to talk about my experience because it's not in the traditional sense, being in a specific workplace. I mean, it could be because I do teach full time, and that's a different thing ish. But in terms of the other side of it, that's still freelance artist, because a lot of my creative practice, academia, they love that. The more you do out in the field,
Yes,
valuable.
yes.
And so I'm still constantly like hustling and doing that. And recently, like, I was afforded the opportunity. I was selected as a artist in residence at this beautiful historical landmark in Northeast Philly. Thanks. It's called the Glenford Mansion. And I literally get to spend time in the mansion for like a majority of this year, like researching and creating my own performance, my own, producing my own show, which I've never done before. It's never been a site specific thing in my.
And this is through a grant, commissioned through a
This is
grant.
through a grant, which takes me to my point is
Better
that,
do that.
like, the business or, side of it and advocating for yourself, especially as a Black woman, has been really hard. Because it's hard to find the line of what the grant tours, the people, the panels, if you will, that make these decisions. And it's like, you feel like when you're trying to advocate for yourself and prove yourself as, your business entity is yourself, is your creative practice. And so when having to articulate that and write about it and making it seem valuable enough, for us to give you this much money, is hard. Especially when you feel sometimes like you have to categorize yourself as the Black woman and my Black experience in my Black body, and that's how I'm gonna get money. That's lived experience. My lived experience is that I'm just a vessel and I'm doing what I'm called to do. So how do I say that on this paper and you give me this money? So I can honestly say in this case, because this is really the first thing I've ever like been granted in terms of winning like a grant at this, at this size, at this level, is just like staying true to like what the urgency is like of your work and why you feel it's important. And for me, what drew me to this, and it wasn't me trying to be, other than just being my Black self, is that I live in the Northeast area, which is one thing. It's the neighborhood that I grew up in. But also, did I say it's the neighborhood I grew up in? It's the neighborhood I live in. I'm from Baltimore. But anyway, but living in the Northeast Philly area, and like knowing that it exists, or this mansion exists, and like actually going to visit with my family and my kids and everything. And the thing that really drew me to apply was just the simple fact that it wasn't curiosity about the wealthy, white family that lived in it. It was the butler. And so I decided to create my application based off of like, let's talk about the butler. Let's talk about his life. Like, what he lived on the quarters, but he had a whole family outside the mansion. He couldn't even live with them, you know? So it started going towards, okay, instead of me trying to be forceful and like putting my identity out here and say, yes, I'm Black and this is what I stand for and this is why I'm gonna write about it and get this grant. It was more about I'm genuinely interested in like the history of this person that has such an impact on why this place is what it is, and how I can use my creative work as a dancer and choreographer to tell this story from a different perspective. And I think that the lesson in that for me is like, you know, don't try to be the thing, just be the thing. And let what drive you, and it's going to come together. So in that sense, that's what I'm learning at this phase of my life and like my career, with that is like, yeah, because the workplace changes depending on where the money is going to be given to
That's
you.
right. That's right.
In this sense, it's going to be Glenford Mansion this year.
That's right. That's right.
But you know, it's just a very interesting realization to come to. So yeah, that's
I
my
love that for you. I love it. I love it. I can't wait. I hope you get all the grants. Take all their money.
you.
Take all their money.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well
you.
deserved.
Take all their money.
Thank
I
you.
love
I
that.
think in education, like, right, so I've been at my school, I think about 8 years now, and um, I have so many kids, like so many kids who have kids who've gotten married, you know, they come back and they're like, oh, Miss Jones, blah, 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 yada, yada, and this happened and this and the third. And like, I love that for me, right? Like I have some kids this year where like they're the last kid of their family that I have. So I've had everyone, their older brother, their older sister. But like as far as like Black women who are older who work in the building, there is the administrative assistant, Auntie Molson, and then a math teacher, Miss Foster. Now, Miss Foster has definitely, I always loved her, but she grew herself to grow on me, if that makes sense. Cause I'm a hugger. Like I come from a hugging family, and she wasn't a hugger, but I changed her. I changed her because she would say, good morning, Jones. I'd be like, good morning, Foster. And I would go up to her and I would hug her and squeeze her tight. And she would be giving me a little, little church hug. And I would say, listen, if we gonna hug, you got to squeeze me because the energy is transferable. And like once she started hugging, like she just like blossomed like a lotus flower, you know? And we have a really great relationship. She teaches math. I'm a dean of students. I used to teach music, but like our relationship has definitely blossomed. There aren't very many other older Black women in the building, or than the social worker, Miss Annette. I call her my Annette. She's like a mother, but we naturally like clicked, you know what I mean? But like in regards to the like you were saying, Ninah, like I don't know, not so much in my building, but when I go out for like the professional developments or whatever, and you get to see everyone who has your role across the network, it could be a little like, okay, I see you do your job. They say you do a good job. Keep doing your job.
Little girl.
Yeah, go ahead, boo. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, little girl.
Right. And you know, I don't take it personal because everybody has their own energy, right?
Yes.
But I think the thing that troubles me the most are those Black and brown people who make white adjacent decisions on behalf of children, or who don't tap in to help the other people under their charge who happen to look like them. Like they don't pour in as much. Like they even like poke a hole in the other person's cup just so that they could say they've poured in, but ain't nothing stayed. Stayed, you know, like you got people like resigning, you know, because they don't feel poured into. So I know for me personally, I do my best to pour into the people who are on my team. Yeah, white adjacent choices. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Talk
Y'all know
about that a
exactly.
little. Expand on that a little. Because that's a word.
So it's like this. So you are an assistant principal, a Black woman assistant principal of instruction. You have Black and brown male and women and men underneath your charge. And they don't feel supported by you. They feel like when they have conversations with you or the check-ins that it's just glossed over. And when they bring what they're thinking or their issues to you, you give them the, oh, well, let's name it. Well, you can name it, or let's unpack it. Like you give them all of these, like, you know, white phrases that don't really speak to the soul of Black people. Like what you talk about, unpack it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Listen, I am unpacking. We're having this check-in. I'm telling you how I feel. And you telling you like you whitewashing my feelings. Like you pouring over me with some whitewashed phrases and things like that to make me assume that you care about what I'm talking about, but you don't.
Yes.
You don't. Or you're in like a huddle or whatever,
Yes.
and you got like a brown lady who's also an API. This happened to me. And you say to me, oh, well, me and Miss Jones are going to meet with this parent. And I say, I don't prefer to be told that I'm going to do something. Like, can we have a conversation?
That's
And then
right.
you're going to double back and send me this white adjacent email, like, collecting receipts, talking about you didn't like what I said. But if you didn't like what I said, then you shouldn't have said it in front of the people that you were embarrassed about. Like, I don't hold punches. I don't have a gray area. So you are acting in a way that is domineering, which is very, very, very Caucasic. Okay, very Caucasus. And you expect the other black and brown people to fall in line. That's not okay. That's a white adjacent way of being.
That's right.
And if there's anything that I am, is that I am definitely black. I am definitely spicy, but I'm also respectful. Like, I'm not going to disrespect you on purpose. You know what I mean? I don't mean you any harm. I do speak very like specific, and I use my voice. And if my voice makes you feel away, then you should check how you talk to me.
That's right.
And if you're not going to check how you talk to me, then go on ahead and lay in the bed and wish that you're in and be sorrowful about what you said and how I reacted. But either way, it's especially in education. I can't speak to corporate, but especially in education, those who are black and brown who happen to have positions of authority, they tend to lean toward how their Caucasic supervisor would prefer a decision to be made versus making a decision that would benefit the people that they're in charge of, as well as children. That's what I mean by white adjacent decisions. Like, and it just comes off, like a front lace, it just snakes that joint off and then they pass it off. That's not okay. It's bad energy. It doesn't move the village forward, and it's terrible for children. It's terrible for everyone, and it also creates like a space in people's conscious and subconscious thoughts that the way that they feel is anti what the actual goal is.
Yes. Agreed. Amber, I see your hand is up. And Joy, I want to get your thoughts because I know you're a principal. So I definitely want to hear both of your thoughts.
Amber, you want to go first?
Go ahead, Amber.
Boy, go ahead, because I want to address the flip side of this in corporate. So while you're still on the topic, go ahead.
All right. So I have been a principal at the same school for 7 years. And for the last 3 years, I've had an administration team of Black females. I have grew in my building a very diverse staff. We have a lot of Black and brown staff teaching and moving up in their position to be teachers that stayed in my building to stay.
Yeah.
They felt supported. I have APs that are older than me. They're not much older, but they're older than me. And we have a very, very mutual admiration and respect for our skills of each other. But they have a respect for my authority, right? Because I am the principal. At the same time, if you ask my staff, if you ask my staff, especially our Black and brown staff members, how they feel about the support they get from administration, they want more of us, right? They stay after school to talk to us, and we just chat. I will say that one of my APs is the queen of analogies. Okay. She will give you an analogy, but I mean, she will bring it from the soul. Okay. If all you do is watch sports, she's giving you an analogy from sports. If you're a child and you have no parental support, but you have to make an important decision for yourself, she coming to you with an analogy for that. She supports everyone. My other AP, creative soul, all she does is say, how can I help? They are both willing to jump into the classroom just to support, right? And we do it because our kids need that. We don't do it because, we do have bosses. Everybody has a boss. You know what I'm saying? And you have to sometimes navigate through your bosses, right? But at the end of the day, if you can prove that you are doing something for your kids, you're doing something for your kids.
That's right.
Decisions are made at my building with, yes, goals kept in mind, school goals, right? School goals kept in mind. But if something is not going right with I have middle school, with 8th grade, then I have to pour attention into 8th grade. And if it's not going right with the 8th grade Black males, then guess what? We're going to pour in to the 8th grade Black males. That's what we're going to do. I do hope that my staff feel that we are human. That's most important. First of all, I'm a Black woman at anything. When 5 years ago, when we were on here, it was the start of my administration in the building. Same, right? It was the start. But at the start, it was doubt. It was doubt and some awe. Some awe. Some people were like, "Oh, you're young and you're a principal and you're Black," and like, but then as I said with the first question, prove them wrong, right? I am a human being first. I'm here for the kids. I'm here for the parents. Just had a student lost because she got on the wrong bus on Friday. Who jumped in their car? I'm gonna go find her. Forget it. I'm not, we not about that life. I gotta find my student. Mind you, she's walking up right when I was about to drive to get her. But we're here for the students. And I really hope that my staff can see that not only through the words, but through the actions, that we are willing to go above and beyond to do whatever it is. And like I said, the respect and admiration I have for my assistant principals, being Black women, being strong Black women, not going to back down just in case you wanted to have a conversation. Let's have that.
That's right.
Not going nowhere. Oh, you said that? I'm gonna go have that conversation right now. I'm gonna have the conversation. I'm not just gonna put in some funky email. I'm gonna have that conversation with you right here, because emails are a matter of, you take them the wrong way. You can't take my energy the wrong way if I'm standing in front of you.
That's right.
As Shakera said, always come with respect, but it's always a conversation. It's always a conversation, especially if I'm trying to support you, because you're going to tell me how to best support you. I'm not going to come here. This is how the support's going to look. Yeah, but you don't work that way. Okay. Let me figure it out. Just like I asked you to figure it out with my students, I'm going to figure it out with my staff. And when it comes to the Black and brown staff, when I tell you I'm so proud of the staff that went to school, graduated. Now they're teachers. They are very respected in the building, not only by the students, but by their colleagues, by administration, by my bosses. They can't do anything but respect that.
That's right.
It is a beautiful feeling to have had so long in a building, to have grown that. My staff has changed for a reason, but to have grown that. But I will say, to Shakira's point, go outside of my building. My building is a safe zone. You go outside of my building, and now I'm interacting with colleagues. Some are still in the awe phase. Oh, you still here? I think that's more like a doubt phase. But are you still here? And it's just like, proof I'm wrong. Yes, I am. And so you enjoy your day. Have a good day on purpose. That's what I say to everybody. Have a good day on purpose. So I feel you, Shakera, and I really hope that in the whole scheme of things, people start doing things differently, and for the focus of the student, our Black and brown students who are having very difficult time getting proficient on these assessments. They have experiences in them. They are so much more knowledgeable than so many peers across the nation because of their experiences. Don't doubt our students.
You're absolutely correct. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna make this.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm gonna make this real quick because I know we have to get to the next thing. I have not taught in the classroom since pre-pandemic middle school, so I haven't been in the game for quite a while. But one thing that I think is a common denominator in both corporate and in academic settings is knowing that you have to find your support systems, but knowing that unfortunately sometimes it's a competition. And the sad thing about it is that, especially amongst our own people, sometimes we're button heads because we're dealing with our white counterparts who are trying to make sure that we're safe enough to be trusted, but at the same time not feel like we're being overpowered by them, so that in the most extreme case, it's bucking towards massa, whatever form massa might take. And then the flip side of that, and I'll give a quick example, when I first took my mother's business and I started looking at valuing what I do as an editor, one of my colleagues said to me, Amber, you're undervaluing yourself. You need to be charging a lot more for what you do based on your experience, based on how good you are, and based on your education. You should not be undervaluing yourself. And when I went to my own people, what they said to me was, Amber, that's a really good idea. I can't afford you. Or Amber, you keep on keeping on, sweetheart, but you know, we'll see where this goes. And so what I had to do was look for the folk that quote unquote could afford me. And so it puts me at odds, like, wait a second, we're all supposed to be linking arms here, creating our own spaces, supporting one another, fighting the good fight. And yet we'll still dismiss one another because unfortunately it's too much of a risk to take a risk on your own people. So we're trying to find allies. We're trying to find our own bubbles where we can fight against whatever our counterparts are doing. But at the same time, we're still bucking heads against each other. And it's going to take us having to break down those walls that, if I can get a little frank, have been going back to the 1650s that divided us in the first place, to really tower over all this stuff that's going to keep us in the back of the bus. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. So I am so glad that from what I'm hearing, there is more unity. We are defending each other. And even in corporate, you're going to find those pockets. There are I'm trying to remember the terminology, but there are so many unions and so many, I'm trying to find the word and I'm losing it. But the bottom line is there are connections that we're making and fraternal sorority aspect like connections that we're making, but they're still too sparse. And these connections need to bring life and not more competition.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of that. Yes, Teresa.
I working in where I was 5 years ago, I'm still at the same place of employment. Thank God, because some people don't have jobs. But what I found that was happening then, that's happening now. And listening to the ladies here on the panel, we're all experiencing what I've called it the Sambo effect. And the Sambo effect, I called it that because you think you have allies in the workplace who look like you,
but you don't.
But they don't work like you.
No.
And they don't work for you, when I mean not as an employee, but they're not beneficial to your emotions, to how you work in the workplace. They're not beneficial to your personality. They are, and I'm finding a lot more of that to be true.
Yes.
5 years later.
Yes.
And also what's happening, there's this article that was published in Forbes magazine, January, actually a year ago in January 2024. It's called, I think the author of that article for Forbes, I think her name is Keisha Thomas, but there was a thesis written about it. It's called From Office Pet to Office Threat.
Yes. Yes.
And
I think there's like an infographic with it, right?
Yeah,
like almost a map. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and what it basically is about, I'm just paraphrasing because it's a big thesis and it's a really, really good read. The article is, the moment you're valuable when you are making the place of employment prosper. And I'm talking about Black women, only Black women. But the moment you speak up for yourself or request a promotion or a raise or making more suggestions about something, then you become a threat. And you become a threat just by defending yourself against something that is heinously wrong in the workplace. making a suggestion to make work better for everyone, not just you. Or just basically just because bottom line, no one in the world wants to get up 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and go to a job. No one does. It's something we have to do. So we're the last rung on that list of people who get taken care of, or people who get cared about in these.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's unfortunately, but I couldn't put a name or a face to it back then when we first had this panel. But now, yes, it's I call it the Sambo effect.
I mean,
being a pet to a threat in the workplace.
That's real. That's so real. I know in my my last place of employment, which I commonly refer to as the land of the abyss, um, you know, what I've learned and noticed in specific to nonprofit, and I don't know if it's like this in education or in other spaces, is, you know, nonprofits tend to give off the air of being very liberal and progressive, and they are not. You know, and what I've noticed, especially since we last met in 2020, was this effort within the nonprofit sector, social service, human services sector, to recruit Black women in positions of leadership. Because at that time, you know, 2020, DEI and all these things, and Black Lives Matter, and trust Black women, and blah, let Black women lead, and blah, 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 right? And what I learned in my last experience at the Land of the Abyss was Black women in leadership and nonprofit will often be placed in these positions to fix the problem. And the problem is usually like, oh, you know, we have low client base, we're not meeting our numbers. Can you help us with our data? Can you help us rebrand and team morale, right? Like we're often immediately put in as the cleanup woman and superwoman. And very seldom, what I learned in my last experience was your title may reflect someone in a position of power or authority, but because you are a Black woman in an inherently white space, even when it's a Black space, you do not have that level of power and authority. Yet you are given the burden of having all the responsibility as if you had that power and authority. And when you start to, just like you said, Teresa, when you start to push back and question and say, well, wait a minute, if you're putting me in this position, then I need to have access to blah, blah, blah. I need to be able to do dot, dot, dot. I need to be able to do dot, dot, dot. I need you to move out the way and let me do what you hired me to do, right? Like I know at my last job, I ran a youth center, long-standing youth center, very well known here in Baltimore City. And they were looking for someone to come in. I was tapped when I was working at the mayor's office, tapped to come in because of my level of expertise and all, right? All these things, right? Yet it was a front. And that's what they had been doing since its inception, right? Is putting on this face of someone who's a Black or brown face in a position of leadership. But when you looked at who the major funder was, right? When you look at the university that was a powerhouse, a well-known Baltimore University that was a powerhouse behind this organization, you learn like, oh, I'm just here to be a puppet. And what I've noticed is, you know, in that space, in being in a position of management and supervising Black folks in that space, and especially for those who've been in the space for so long, they get complacent. And so what happens with Black women in leadership and nonprofit, unfortunately, is not only are you pushing back up, right, but you're also having to push back down. And you're pushing back down against people who look like you while pushing back up against people who do not look like you. And it can be incredibly isolating and confusing because then you start to question yourself, like, well, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this? What am I doing wrong? Like what is happening here? And the biggest takeaway that I've learned from that is that's the function of racism and white supremacy in the workplace, to manipulate and distort the way we perceive ourselves as women in positions of leadership. Because if we weren't capable, we wouldn't be called. Like, and that's just what it is. Like, if we weren't capable, we wouldn't be called. And I'm so glad that all of us, no matter the field that we are in, are using our workspaces as a tool and a platform to move away from that and to call in those who are also, gifted and about the same thing. Like, these are about our clients, these are about our students, to create that safe space. I'm so glad that we're doing that, because it has to pivot, especially with what's coming, which we'll get to later. Okay, let's pivot. Talking about students, Black women, and our experiences in education and academia. So in 2015, Kimberly Crenshaw, who I'm sure everybody on this panel in this room knows, very well-known Black woman scholar, she published a study through Columbia Law called Black Girls Matter, Pushed Out, Over-Policed, and Unprotected. And so this study captured, similar to the Georgetown study, captured the experiences of young Black girls in education, right? From about kindergarten, first grade to, 12th grade. And what this study found, what Kimberly Crenshaw and her team found, was that Black girls are suspended at higher rates than their peers, even their Black male peers, whether it's in school or out of school suspension. Young Black girls are called into the principal's office more often. They're called in to speak with the social worker more often, right? Like, there's all these hidden inequities that exist. But because of the way we perceive Black girls, especially tied to education, because we perform so well in education, a lot of these issues are not addressed, right? Recently, she's another well-known Black woman scholar on Instagram, Feminista Jones. She had some discourse online this week talking about the new data that's been coming out around Black women who hold PhDs, right? Because at one point we were being told that we hold the highest and the percentage and we are the most well-educated and blah, 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 blah. And now it's coming out where some of that data might actually be incorrect, right? Because we're not being represented and captured properly, right? Kendrah, I know you are fighting the good fight and trying to get your doctorate in education. And I know a lot of your research kind of touches on the experience of Black educators in education, especially in predominantly white spaces. Talk about some of your work and what you've experienced.
Sure. So, I mean, I could talk all day on
Yes.
everything you just said. A lot of my research, well, all of my research really focuses on culturally responsive teaching and how that impacts second through fourth grade teachers who work with English language learners with reading comprehension. So it's a really specific area of study focusing really predominantly on reading and comprehension, English language learners. So really, I mean, I'm talking Black and brown kids.
Yeah.
And our teachers incorporating culturally responsive practices, instructional practices in their classrooms,
Yeah.
so that kids feel seen in the literature that they're reading.
Yeah.
And when we talk about different scholars, like Zaretta Hammond, and I want to point out her book. This is Zaretta Hammond's book. It's Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. It is one of the most powerful books, along with so many other scholars, like, for example, Gloria Ladson Billings, who she actually termed the coin culturally responsive teaching and critical race theory. It's all kind of connected.
Yes.
And when we think about some of those things, teachers, and I'll have to divulge later as I'm kind of coming to the conclusiveness of the study. But the reality is that when we first did this roundtable, we were at the height of George Floyd and all of these beautiful Black people who were just being murdered in the street, and folks filming it. And then we're talking about having all of these riots, and not riots, but demonstration of civil disobedience, us walking in streets and taking away our monies and all of these kinds of things, which, you know, a lot of people were reacting to what we have been experiencing for centuries.
That's right.
And so, you know, school districts at this time were like, oh gosh, like if we don't do something about this, we better hurry up, you know, like we better get on the bandwagon before folks start burning the joint down. And so then you have all of these interesting things where, okay, we got to hurry up and let's just do a Google search of Black people who talk about race and education and bring them to do professional development in our schools.
That's right. That's right.
With no research, no recognizance, none of that.
Nothing.
Well, let's hurry up and see if we can get in at least one Black principal in our suburban schools, or a couple more Black and brown educators, or someone who speaks a different language. Let's hurry up and react. As if we haven't been doing this work for centuries.
That's right.
And so it's interesting now that I want to fast forward. I'm almost glad that 5 years later we're coming, because so much of the work that some school districts have done has been such that they'll bring people in, quote, train them on culturally responsive practices. So a lot of that is surface level discussions about your identity. And how do you bring that into the classroom?
Yes.
How do you impart that to your students? And, you know, how do you go about having culturally based structured conversations with your children? Or if you have an English language learner in your class, how are you, who maybe is a level 1 and doesn't speak any English, how are you meeting their needs? You know, all of these things that now you're thinking about that has been present in your classroom for years. And so it's an interesting time because, I mean, the research has always pointed to the facts that Black and brown kids have higher incidences of suspension, higher incidence of getting in trouble in school, whether that's ISS, in school suspension, out of school suspension, you know, perceptions of even just white teachers when they see a brown child, oh, well, you know, I guess they can't read, or they only have one parent at home, or they have all of these societal issues. Well, no, remember, Black people, brown people are not monoliths. We all come with a variety of situations.
That's right.
And so, you know, it's a very interesting time because, you know, looking at the research and evaluating even how we use language. Like when we talk, I know, I forget if it was Amber or if it was Joy who pointed to the use of African American vernacular. You know, us talking about how us growing up and being perceived as talking white, and then really recognizing that when we have children who come into our classroom and they may use more colloquial language, that in and of itself also has a level of genius. That to me is no different than other children speaking Spanish or German or whatever. There is a certain level of genius to that, especially when children can turn it on and off. And so the important part, a lot of teachers don't recognize, and this is why, as I'm soon to be segueing out of the classroom, I want to train teachers to recognize, meet children where they are and highlight all of those things that they're bringing into your classroom. Because if you connect with them in that way, and Zaretta Hammond talks about it in her book, like scientifically, if we are able to connect with children and meet them where they are culturally, and that doesn't just mean, oh, she's Black, so she must celebrate Kwanzaa. No, that doesn't mean that either. Like, you know, it means that okay, she's coming in and maybe she plays soccer.
That's
but
right.
her parents are hype on the sidelines. So
That's right.
how do you meet her where she is in her
That's right.
family? All of those things, that the commonalities amongst children, whether they're black, brown, white, or orange,
That's right.
that if we meet them where that they are and cater our instruction to do that, that it literally impacts even down, to their brains.
Yes.
That,
Yes.
all of that. So it's so important. And I think, I've had the opportunity over the last few years to work and train teachers. And I have a student teacher now, and she said to me, she said, Kendrah, I've learned more in the last week. She just started more in the last week than I have my entire program. And I said, the fact of the matter is that if you're not connecting and creating community and understanding children, and
Yes.
that their differences and their similarities,
Mm-hmm.
their beauty, if you don't see them for who they are and their humanity first,
Mm-hmm.
you can't teach them.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yes.
Period. So, I could go on and on to get into the science of it, and even with, there is Lisa Delpit, who has an amazing book. It's called Multiplication is for White People. And she was a longtime educator from Philly. She doesn't live in Philly anymore. Her and Gloria Ladson Billings are kind of like the go-to Black scholars, for education, along with at Morgan State, the sister from Morgan who wrote the book. Oh my gosh, it's escaping
And she
me.
recently came to Morgan State. I know exactly who you talk
Yeah,
about.
she just came, and I can't think of. I'll put it in
Dr.
the chat once I think of it.
Dr. Is it
Kamika Royal.
Kamika,
Kamika
yes.
Royal. Yeah, Dr. Kamika
With the
Royal.
short natural cut.
Yes,
Yep.
and her book is highly referenced as well. I know School District of Philadelphia references her very often, and she's a professor there at Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so interesting, and I'll leave off on this. When we're talking about education, the differences between, and I've worked in urban education and suburban education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The only difference between those two areas is one may be more resourced than the other.
Yep.
The children are the same.
Yep.
They face many of the same challenges. Parents who are involved, or parents who may be strung out on drugs. You will see that in a highly resourced district or one with limited resources.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers have to be trained along the same lines.
Yeah.
You can't go into a Philadelphia school district and say, well, let me go and save the kids. Well, that's not the experience of all children. You have a strong administrator like Joy, where I am
Mm-hmm.
sure that her children are thriving because she
Mm-hmm.
creates, has that high level of expectation of excellence,
Mm-hmm.
meets children where they are. That's effective for her staff, the teachers who are under her leadership, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to effectuate change for the
That's
children
right.
and
That's
their
right.
instruction. And that's really where we have to come in at. And for parents, for some of us are parents, we also have to hold our schools accountable to make sure that they are doing their job, because not all teachers are teaching equally, and that's just the facts.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the facts. So I'll
I
leave
can
it there.
say that was beautiful, Kendra. I
Yeah.
will say that if you ever heard, do you know Rita Pearson? TED Talk?
Yes.
All right, so you just talked about relationships when it comes to education, and I
Yep.
really want to stress that if you're trying to teach any student or any
That's
child
right.
anything, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a mentor, whether you are their cousin, their mother, their father, you better have a relationship with them first.
Yep.
Rita Pearson is famous, just passed away, but she did a TED Talk, said every kid needs a champion. If your kid, if you're trying to teach somebody something and they don't have a relationship with you, or you're not at their level trying to help them grow, then stop. It's like
Mm-hmm.
wasting your breath. Like just
Mm-hmm.
They you can't learn from somebody you do not have a connection with. It doesn't matter how small, how big, you
Yep.
need a connection. Rita
Yep.
is a great TED Talk to watch.
Yep. Yep.
I definitely agree. I mean, I think one of the things I love most about being an educator, a music educator, right? But also a dean of students is that like I get to develop relationships with like generations of kids. And
Mhm.
I don't have, and when the next generation comes up and I get to have them, they're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm gonna have Miss Jones. I can't wait to see you, blah, blah, blah. But also the fact that like your family already knows that I really give a damn about you and your trajectory and where God has for you to go.
Yeah.
I talk to my students about, um, what God has for you, ancestor spirit team, like this is not the end. This is your journey. And being able to freely talk with them in that way and them understanding where I'm coming from and knowing that I'm not going to tell you anything that's going to harm you. I'm not going to guide you in a way that's going to destroy you is really
Mhm. Mhm.
beautiful. You know,
Mhm.
it's really beautiful. And I appreciate it.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's move on and pivot a little bit. Black women in beauty. So there's been some recent talk online from some YouTubers having some discourse around why does it seem like Black women celebrities are getting lighter? Why are Black women getting plastic facial surgery? Why are we getting bigger lips? Why are we doing all of these things, right? While simultaneously we're seeing a shift back to preference of slim bodies, right? Kind of like what we saw in the 90s, early 2000s, and it pivoted to, just a whole lot of ass everywhere. And now it's pivoting and moving back, right? Like the pendulum is going back this way, right? And that's both for women overall, but we're also starting to see it kind of touch point and trickle down into Black women and how we feel about our own beauty. Lauren, talk about some of your experiences in terms of your beauty and Black women in beauty, and how do you feel about this constant pendulum shift, especially now that Black women are becoming comfortable with plastic surgery and enhancements and all of these things?
Sure. Um, well, I kind of hate to do it because it seems cliche, but you really have to take it back to like the mental health thing, right? Because like your view of yourself is, has to do with your mental space, like your
Mhm,
headspace, where you at.
mhm, mhm.
And it's just really, I mean, probably worse now than it's ever been. I know you said it's been kind of going back and forth, which is
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
Now, just because of like social media and you
yep,
know, I hate being that older person like, oh, social media, but it really is like the make or break,
yeah,
right? And unfortunately, it's more of the break that
yeah,
you're seeing with
yeah,
people's spirits and how the algorithms are controlling that and what's showing up in your
yeah,
feed. And so it's just the constant witnessing seeing of those things. It's just the oversaturation of it. You're not, the younger people are not really getting a break from it. At least I can say, back in my time growing up, 80s 80s 90s kid, like the natural beauty was the thing. And I
yeah,
forgot, I saw a post recently of like the 90s beauties. It was
yep,
like Nia Long and
yep,
like, like people like
yep,
the, I don't know, you guys probably know what I'm talking
yep,
about. And
yep,
and it's just so true because they were just who they were, and that's who we got to see growing up on screen, who I got to see growing up. And so it's like, oh, I didn't have to try so hard. The most thing for me, um, I can't not bring up my hair journey because that's a big part of, our Black experience. But like for me, the only thing was just like the being able to embrace like, my natural hair and that sort of thing. Because I was never like big on makeup and, I didn't grow up in a household that wasn't exemplified in my household. My mom was never, you know, she wasn't a big makeup wearer or anything. She was just very much in her natural state. So I had that to lead by example, which was great. And then moving on, you know, you get to college and you're exposed to all these all these different kinds of, you know, young women that are, you know, different and that, you know, were into that. But I never really felt drawn to, oh, I need to look like that. It was just the hair thing. But I will say that even with the hair thing, back when I was getting, you know, relaxers and stuff like that, it was just this idea of uh just the length. I was like, oh, if I get a relaxer, then my hair will be a certain length. It'll be longer. That was important. I don't know why length was important. Maybe it's just the flick. You know, you just see people doing it, you know. It was just the thing. I was like, oh, that's gonna make me more attractive, kind of thing. Remember an instant where I think I was like 13 when I got my first relaxer, like around that age.
Yep.
So you know you're already like
Yep.
the changes, right?
Yep.
So let's add that. And I just remember like it back, you know, in the bowl, my hair is like, you know, just been washed after the chemicals all in it. And literally like everybody in the shop, like all the beauticians were standing around because
Looking.
they
Yep.
couldn't wait. They were like, oh, I can't wait to see her hair. It's gonna be so pretty. And I'm
Yep.
just thinking to myself, like, dang, like this is what it takes, huh? For my hair to be pretty.
Yep.
So that kind of stuck. And that lasted for a really long time until I decided that I wanted to go natural at 22. And like ever since then, you just, it's something in the spirit. It's just like even that whole period where I was rocking that, it just didn't feel me, you know, it just wasn't, it didn't fit. And it wasn't until now, until my next decade of life in my 40s, where I decided, say, you know something, I just really feel like I should lock, you know. Um, and it was something that kind of like was a quick turnaround. It wasn't something I was pondering for like years before. As a matter of fact, I used to pretty much borderline despise locks. Just to keep it real. But like it was, yeah, recently then, like a couple years ago, I was like, you know something, I'm gonna do this. It just seems like something that I could be into. It kind of works with my lifestyle now, blah, blah, blah. When I tell you, because I'm a little over a year into it now, and like at the moment I got them installed, it was just like, wow, I was like, this is Lauren. This is like, this is me. Like it just felt right. And to this day, it just feels right. It fits. I don't feel like I'm trying to be anything, you know, outside of myself. It just feels right. And I think, you know, so I just share that to say that like, you know, the constant tweaking and fixing and things that we're seeing, you know, the celebrities are doing and that young people, young girls are being drawn to, it's your spirit just doesn't lie. Like it's something in them that says that they're not good enough, that they're not fit, that they don't fit because of how they God made them, you know? And so I think with it, it's just, you know, when you know, you know, when you like make that shift in yourself, it's just something that it's just a security you have. It's a confidence. It's a apologeticness, you know, and you know, you can just walk in that without turning your head, without like looking for likes, you know, without seeking that approval because you just know. So, you know, the thing is like, yeah, like seeing it now, what they're dealing with, or I guess it's all of our, you know, when it's our struggle too. But what we're facing right now with that is just not reminding. I don't think there's enough reminding and reassuring of like, you know, you were made to be exactly how you were made for a reason, and you just need to love up on that. Like, love up on that. And especially like, you know, when you're a teenager, because it's like you don't know. I don't know, but I'm getting better with age. You all are probably getting better. Like, you don't know what it's going to look like 10, 20 years from now. Like, let it rest. Just grow in that. Let it rest. Like, you're beautiful and you're going to be twice as beautiful if you just keep riding course, you know? I don't know. That's all I got to say about it.
Lauren, you said a hell of a word. Let me tell you, like, as a little kid, I never thought that I was ugly. I always thought that I was cute, right? But I feel like as I've gotten older and I look at my mom and I look at my dad, like when I'm with either of them, I look just like them, right? And I feel like I'm way more beautiful now than maybe I was like as a little kid. And I was probably beautiful as a little kid, but just didn't know. But like I can look in the mirror and be like, Okay, boo, I see you. And, as far as the natural hair journey, like when I was in grad school at UArts, RIP, RIP, in 2000, I got there after Temple, and I decided that I was just going to go natural. And I didn't know what I was doing, but my soul said, okay, like do something else. And I've been natural all this time. I mean, I've been wearing rocking braids since pandemic just because it's easier. But yeah, I feel like beauty comes with growth, and it also comes with like understanding like who you are, and knowing that like who you are is definitely who God made you to be, and being able to stand in that is really beautiful, because once you see the beauty in you, you see so much beauty in other people.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact. I think looking back on my journey with beauty and with hair has been different. So I grew up, I'm an immigrant kid. So I grew up in a traditional West Indian household, like very old school Haitian. Like the fact that I have piercings and tattoos is like blasphemy in West Indian communities, right? Like, right? And then the colored hair, like it's a lot. And I think for me, using my beauty and hair and how I present myself aesthetically has always been to rebel against that, but especially rebel. And I didn't realize that that's what I've been doing since like my late teens and 20s and whatever, until I got into my doctoral program and was like, oh, that's why I do that. Oh, okay. Especially around brightly colored hair. So, Khalees was like my inspo when I was a teen. Like, oh my God, I can't wait, blah, blah, blah. Cause I just knew it wasn't happening in my mother's house. Like it was gonna happen when I went away to college, right? Like it's not happening, right? Until I, went to Temple. And so when I got to Temple, that's when I really started playing with color in my hair and like the long, colorful nails, and really like embracing all of these aesthetics of Black women that unfortunately we are conditioned to believe is ugly or ghetto or unprofessional, right? Until the others make it cute, right? Like paying for bamboo earrings that are however much at Urban Outfitters, right? When before it was at the beauty supply store, but y'all didn't want it. But anyway, and having this relationship with beauty and hair, and it started to pivot, I think, I want to say maybe sophomore, junior year, and taking the Black Woman course at Temple with Dr. Story. Love her down. That class changed my life, right? And I remember one day, she had another beautiful, beautiful Black woman scholar, Dr. Yaba Blay, who also came through Temple Black Studies Department. And so she was the guest lecturer for the day. And the lecture was on beauty and colorism. So Dr. Yaba, went around the class asking, everyone in the class, but specific to the women in the class, why do you perm your hair? Or why do you keep your hair natural? And so when she got to me, and I grew up, I didn't beg my mom to perm my hair until like 7th grade, right around that time when I was just like, because I had very long, wavy and curly hair. And I didn't like feeling othered, right? Like I wanted to be like everyone else. Like I was tired of people questioning, like, well, what are you? Why is your hair like that? It's like, I'm Black like you, like I'm Haitian. Haitians don't have hair. Like, well, what do you mean? You don't look Haitian. Like, and I was so tired of it. So I wanted to just look like everyone else, right? And so when Dr. Yaba got to me, she's like, well, why do you, like, tell me about your relationship with your hair? And I said, oh, well, I don't really perm my hair like that anymore. I do it maybe once or twice a year. And she was like, well, why do you keep doing it then? You're grown now. Like, why do you keep doing it? And I was stuck. And I kind of spent the summer, deep in reading and trying to understand, like, well, why do I keep doing it? And that's when I started to just go completely natural. and then really get into color and beauty as a tool of resistance and liberation, and also, you know, honoring, in a way, honoring our ancestors who didn't have the freedom to walk in a boardroom with blue hair, or to, you know, go to an academic conference and you have big, long, colorful nails and you talking about hoes at an academic conference around a bunch of elders, and everybody's like, you know, you know, and so I often, because I do a lot of work with youth and workforce development and nonprofit setting, and I often have a lot of youth and clients who will ask me like, well, don't you get nervous? Like, how are you able to do that? And I'm just like, you have to, if you're going to choose to present yourself in this manner, you better make sure your shit is tight. So when you walking in that office, or you're walking in that interview, or you're walking in that conference space, or you're presenting that paper, you better make sure that your shit is tight. So tight that no one can say nothing to you, right? And also be confident. This is who I am. This is how I'm presenting. I'm not changing the way I look just to get this job. I'm not taking my nails off. I'm not covering up my tattoos, right? I'm not code switching with y'all. I said what I said. I look the way I look, and take it or leave it, right? Yes, Flojo nails, absolutely. Not changing, right? And I'm glad that there's a shift for us, and the younger sisters coming up behind us to do that. And on one end, I'm happy that Black women now, we have the access and resources to go and get plastic surgery. Like, you know, I'm gonna just do a little, you know, I'm gonna lift these up because I was breastfeeding. You know, I'm gonna just, you know, I'm gonna do a little nip. But then on the other end, I'm seeing some of us getting a bit lost in that. And it's constantly, you know, like I look at Cardi B, beautiful woman, has always been beautiful, right? And you know, sometimes I question, I'm just like, do you know that you're beautiful? Right? Because you're constantly, you know, I'm gonna just take a little here and I'm gonna just do a little here, and now you're looking like the cat lady. Like, what's you know? And so many of our Black sisters who are in public platforms, we're all starting to have the same faith. It's the fox eyes and the Kardashian lips, and it's just like, where are we, right? Little Kim, like, where are we going, and why do we not
so
feel
fast?
beautiful? Yeah, like, why are we not feeling beautiful just as we are, right?
I mean, because if I mean, I saw someone post Little Kim. If you think of Little Kim like back in like in the 90s, like when she first came out, you know, with I mean, like, oh my gosh, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stunning.
like, and when someone was talking about the natural beauties, right, from the 90s, the Instagram post, like, she was adorable. I have no idea who that lady is right now. I don't know who that. I mean, I still love her.
Love her down. Love her down.
But let's be fair, though.
I just have.
She
But
doesn't
be fair.
She doesn't either. And that's the big part of this, that we're not really teaching each other or people coming behind us how to think, but what to think. And you made a reference to Cardi B a little bit ago. The industry is telling her, or at least heavily implying, that this is what you have to look like as a female rapper in a male-dominated game in order to be respected. And we have young women who are looking at, we're talking about the Kardashians, who, let's face it, okay, I should be fair. I'm sorry. Hold on. Give me a minute. I want to be nice about this.
Don't be fair, Amber. Don't be fair.
I don't like the Kardashians.
Don't be fair.
It's sewing and God knows what else to look like, what I can look like if I eat enough macaroni and cheese tonight. Like, let's be real about it. At this point, it's us trying to look like something we already have from the get-go.
Look like,
what we have. Just take care of ourselves. And the sad thing about it is we're all looking around trying to say, who's pretty enough? And now all of us in this panel are at an age where we appreciate what's in our own skin. And if we want to pull it, braid it, tuck it, or whatever, that's my choice and my money, as opposed to doing it so that I can be pretty enough. I think it comes down to not teaching each other, not so much how to think, but what to think. And it's got to stop.
Yeah, I think and what has happened, Prior to 2010, 2009, we didn't have all this social media stuff, right?
Right.
We didn't have people constantly doing selfies and taking
Yeah.
pictures of yourself and
Yeah.
that. So what was going on was you see any given day in 2009, 2010 and prior years, someone say to you, you know, somebody asks you how old you are and they'll say, get out of here. Because
Mm-hmm.
people really didn't know, as far as Black women goes,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't tell how old you were because of the way you kept yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
this goes for our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunts
Yeah.
and nieces and things like that. But when the social media platforms started to take flight, which was
Yep.
2010 and after, people joined
Yep.
the different social media platforms, and a lot
Yep.
of people signed
Yep.
up for Facebook
Yep.
in 2009. And
Yep.
Twitter, and then there was Instagram. Before all of that was MySpace. And now you have everybody looking at each other
Yeah.
and everybody making a comment about each other's looks. And
Yeah.
everyone making fun of each other and being trolls to people physically online, because you'd be a troll to somebody on the keyboard, you're not going to get your head snatched. So
That part.
there was a lot of that going on, and now it's even more prevalent because we have children who know nothing about prior to 2010.
Yeah.
And now those kids who were born back then, they're adults now. They're really young adults thinking
Yeah.
that uh, Instagram and
Yeah.
Twitter and Facebook is their mirror. So when they don't see people who look like them, they are going
Yes.
to want to change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's one of those things where you can learn off of social media, but you can also be damaged by social media as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are now, I'm for like something wrong, something that you want to change, do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But don't do it because Linda two doors down did it, or somebody across another time zone did it, and they're doing it for another reason.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
think they're doing it for the same reason you want to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of that. You have a lot of people. We have social media boomers now who, unfortunately, don't have a mirror. Their computer camera is their mirror, and Facebook is their mirror. So
Yeah.
what they see isn't what they're looking at home. They're going to
Yeah.
want to change it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You
That
know,
influences
I have
social media. Yes.
I
Yeah.
have a 11-year-old daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she knows she's beautiful in her own right, because before she could talk, we used to do affirmations in the
Yeah.
morning, and I just always want her to know that she is naturally beautiful, and to have a circle of women, even on this call, to have a village of women,
Yeah.
so that my daughter can grow up and know that her locks are beautiful. People do not need to run their hands through your locks, but you know
Mm-hmm.
that they're beautiful. When she was
Mm-hmm.
in kindergarten or first grade, she was like, "Mommy, can I cut off my locks?" I was like, "Absolutely, it's hair. Go ahead." Like,
Mm-hmm.
why? Why do you want to cut it?
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
just wants to look like everybody else. And I showed her a picture of Chloe and Hallie, and she said,
Mm.
"They have
Yeah.
locks?"
Yeah.
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 She said, "My locks are gonna get longer?" I said,
Yeah.
"Yes." I said, "Love your locks. Love who you are." She does not think about makeup. Her friends may talk about it. That's not her thing. She is real into her skincare. She wants
Yeah.
to have real good skin, real into skincare. But in terms of makeup and things, like, she loves the fact that my family is a family of locks. Like, she loves that. We embrace that.
Yeah.
And so I really hope, like, society, we can move as a society of Black women to support not only each other, but the generations to come.
Yes. Yes. That's so important, especially when we're talking about how we raise our Black girls, whether they come from us biologically or we're in like stewardship of them in the classroom or in the community. So important. So important. Any other thoughts on Black women in beauty before we go to the next topic? Because our beauty segment goes into the next the next topic.
Last thing I will say about it, if you have not watched the documentary on Netflix called The Black Beauty Effect, watch it as soon as we're finished.
Okay.
Because it talks about historically how almost every other ethnic group has been chasing what we have, even how women in Victorian eras, when they would have corsets, would tie things on the back to make their bums look larger.
Yep.
That's just a shameless plug.
Yep.
Watch the Black Beauty Effect documentary on Netflix ASAP.
All right. Now, I know we did speak a little bit about social media and its influence on beauty, the way we see ourselves, our self-identity, our self-concept as Black women, but especially with Black girls. Social media, when we're thinking about Black social media, right? Over the last decade, the landscape has really, really changed. And we're now seeing a lot of content around Black women and dating and femininity coaching and what to do and what not to do and how to look feminine and how to be soft and what's an alpha male and what's a sigma male and what's a simp and pop the balloon and turn around 360 and 20, right? We're just bombarded with all of this content that usually is centered around Black women, right? Whether it's how we present or how we look. Constant conversations around gender wars and Black people and diaspora wars, right? Have we gone too far in social media? Have we gone too far?
I'll pick up on this a little bit. It's funny because I think about cats like Roland Martin, right? Now, I love Roland Martin. I absolutely adore him. He is unapologetically Black. Blackity Black, Black, Black.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I also feel as though unfortunately, he was released from CNN. And now he started this social media platform where he has the opportunity to be a little bit more free, right?
Yep.
So he can say whatever he wants.
Yep.
Often, and he'll have Black men and Black women on his show.
Yep.
But much of my own critique of, for example, and it parallels, I'm not talking in circles, much of my critique of the civil rights movement, right? This beautiful time in Black history. But what we rarely talk about is the backbone of civil rights movement, which was Black women and how they were treated and how, because of the multifaceted threads of our identity that we often had to put to the side being a woman and just focus on the Black stuff, right?
Yes.
And so when I look at Roland Martin's, I watch some of his commentary, and when he has Black women on his show, like I'll even see that he interrupts them more or tries to silence them more or just shuts them down and they're trying to get through stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I love you, but you got some work to do. And, a lot of that too, even when he's talking about, he's asking, with this last election, and I'm sure Kamala had to go through, I can't even imagine the amount of stuff that she went through in those last 100 and some odd days.
Yes.
All that she had to endure.
Yes.
The only reason why I bring that up is because, like you said, social media has had such an interesting presence in talking about, like, well, Black women, we just have to be softer, or else it'll be harder for you to find a man, or it's going to disintegrate your marriage, or all of these things, or these types of like how we relate with one another. And some of that really is just like, it just speaks to more of our humanity than us just being Black.
Yeah.
Like, when can we just say, like, these are our relations based off of our humanity. So if I am experiencing XYZ with a relationship with whether it be heterosexual or not,
That's right.
if I'm in a relationship with someone that this is getting to the center of my humanity, not necessarily me just being Black. And I don't know if I'm being clear about that, but when we're talking about, and I know we often talk about Black love and all of these different things, and as a means of uplifting our community and showing that in our community there are relationships and the centrality of the Black family and all of these things. But sometimes at the center of it is just our humanity, allowing Black people to just be human. And all of these, some of it too, and I hope I'm not talking in circles, that our oppression is profitable.
Yes. Yes.
Our oppression is profitable to us and to them.
Yes.
And I say that in such that everybody wants to have an opinion on Black love and relationships and how we associate with Black men and how all of those kinds of things, but it's to the point, like you said, where it can become a bit much. It really can become a bit much, and I think we really need to just let Black people be in our humanity. I think Black men have done some of the work in terms of like, how can I support my sisters, my mothers, my wife, my friends, so that, it doesn't come off that we're carrying the weight of humanity. But much like I said with the civil rights movement, I think it's important, especially for Black men, to recognize, and we're thinking about like cats like Roland Martin, that if I don't know, it's just an interesting time. It's just an interesting time.
Kendrah, you gotta say it. I see it on your lips. Say it. Just say it. Say it, Kendrah.
We gotta do better. We gotta do better, period.
Thank you.
That wasn't
we gotta
it,
do
but
better.
okay. That wasn't it, Kendrah.
Uh-oh. I don't know. Well, you may have to say it for me, Shakera Jones, but I will say this, that I am grateful. I am grateful to our Black men and Theodore Waters, my husband, who who hold us up.
Good man, Savannah.
Yeah. He's a good man, Savannah.
Good man, Savannah.
Okay, I segue. I really do, but I can't stand that quote. He's a good man, Savannah, because her mother was so wrong.
She was so
I know,
wrong.
her mother was terrible.
Yes.
But see, that's kind of my point, though. I'm not sure if the answer to this question is, has social media gone to? Whenever I hear that quote, it makes my inside scream because it was so backwards. And it was a hot mess, but I digress. So here's the thing. I don't know if social media if Black folk in social media have gone too far. I think that we as people living in Western culture, using whatever medium that we have access to, are going to take advantage of it, whether it is TikTok, Facebook for the old heads, or that's for people who still want to drive a Cadillac. Whatever your medium is, I think people are milking it too much, and we don't have any balance. And I don't know, it's like that proverbial ball that's been rolling down the hill for so long, we don't know how to stop it. And you have cats like Roland Martin, who are going to say their 2 cents or what have you. You even have cats like Dr. Umar who's going to do the same thing. You have cats who are
brother Umar.
You did, no. I'm not hitting Brother Umar today. No, we'll be here until
I'm sorry.
10 o'clock at night.
Oh, relax. Okay, relax, release. I'm back. So all I'm saying, but all I'm saying is I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to solve the problem, but I do know if Black people can do one thing, we can pivot on a dime. So I kind of think it's up to us, but I don't know how to get there.
I think a lot of it has a lot to do with for centuries, all Black people have wanted to do is be left the hell alone. And we have this, I know I do. But
Can you just say it one more time? Tell it for the people in the back who ain't hear
all
you.
Black people for centuries, all they have always wanted to do was to be left the hell alone. And we ourselves personally, each one of us, everyone on this panel, people who logged in to watch us talk about these very interesting topics, every one of us personally, we have this box that we carry, this thing. It has our humanity, what Kendrah was talking about. It has our humanity in it. It has our personality, our emotions, the thing that we're carrying every day. And everybody other than us always wants to unbox it. They want to get that box and they want to dissect us. And then they want to put us back in a box that they think we should be in that particular box. It translates into, well, she needs to stop wearing bonnets out to the market. I can't stand that. And those shoes are not right. Why are they wearing those now? Everybody's selling them. And oh my God, that color lipstick. And why is she wearing her hair like that? Oh my God, everybody's got locks now. I'm sick of seeing it.
Yes.
No, we've and as you're saying that, guess what? I'm looking this way because guess what? I just want to be left the fuck alone. That's it. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You will do us a great service. We will even respect you more if you just leave us alone.
Yep.
Let us work. Let us play. Let us do what, because at its very core, it's about humanity.
Yes.
Then you want to throw locks on top of it. Then you want to throw colored hair on top of it. Then you want to throw long nails on top of it. We're the only ones, Black women, who get ostracized for wanting to be left the hell alone.
Facts.
Yeah, that's a fact. That's such a fact. I couldn't agree more. You know, in my research, my dissertation, whenever the hell I'm gonna finish. You know, recently I've been reading a lot around the Black women's social club movements and tying it to, you know, social media as a tool of respectability politics. And you know what I've been kind of struggling with is because I can't stand respectability politics. Like it irritates me, it makes my elbows itch. I hate it, right? And I hate seeing it online and social media because what I've been noticing over the last few years, but especially with Megan Thee Stallion and her experience with violence and trauma in a very public setting, and her case was the way social media can be a tool for good. And when we think about that case with Megan and all that she experienced, how social media can really be to our demise and our detriment, and can place us in both places of harm in digital spaces and physical spaces. And you know what I'm worrying is, you know, there was someone online a couple weeks ago who had said something like they're worried about, you know, anti-intellectualism really just going going and going, especially over the next 4 years, right? Where folks will see something online and deem it as Bible and as truth. And what I'm worried about is, you know, how social media in a lot of aspects has become that like Bible and source of truth. And because it's so hypercritical and hyper focused on Black women, like what does that mean when we're not in a digital space? Because you can, you know, pop all you want from behind a keyboard, but what does that mean when folks are ingesting that on a daily basis about Black women needing to be put in line, or Black women need to be this in order to be protected, or Black women and Black women, right? How does that translate to how we navigate and show up in the world? And, you know, I think for me, what I've been doing, especially since like the last time we all met, is really curating my content online, Like the minute I see something like signs to know he's not, oh, do not recommend, right? Like how to be soft in your relationship, 10 glow up goddess tips on a block. Like I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And I don't want to hear it until I see the same energy and the same effort put towards our men, right? Like I want to see 12 signs how to leave her the hell alone. 15 tips on how to be emotionally vulnerable, right? In your relationships as a Black man, whether platonic or romantic or on the job. Like I want to see content like that, like how to show up and build a house as a man. Like teach them. Leave us alone. Teach them, please, please. Any other, I could go on and on and on about social media, but what I was saying earlier about respectability politics and the Black women's social movement from the 1800s to the 1960s. And what I'm struggling with now is, respectability politics, especially with Black women, and beauty politics and identity politics for us historically has been a tool of survival and protection. If I cover my hair as a domestic worker, then that, erases my beauty, and maybe that will protect me from experiencing harm, sexual harm or violence, right? And I'm struggling in my research now, because I'm just like, well, okay, how do we move away from that in both digital and physical spaces as Black women, where we do not have to subscribe to this for survival and protection? Yet how do we create these spaces where we are safe as our authentic selves, where we don't have to subscribe to respectability politics, even in a digital space, which I think is crazy that we even have to do that. I could go on and on and on and on. Any other comments about social media? I struggle with social media, especially like red pill content and alpha male. Any other comments on social media before we go to our next topic?
I mean, personally, I think, my dad is my favorite guy. He's a Gemini. I could tell him every time I talk to him, you my favorite guy, Gemini. Okay. And when, I was in a relationship for 15 years, my partner passed away. But when I think of how I should be treated and or courted or whatever, I just think about how I feel when I'm with my father. I don't have to worry about nothing. Mr. Jones made sure that Shakera Jones is just fine. So much so he called me star of the show. Hey, star of the show, how you doing? What's going on? Like courted, treated, taken care of. I don't have to worry. And for me, that what they say, provider, protector, whatever. I don't know all the P's or whatever that has to be, but I have found in my womanhood that I am most soft, if you will, and less walls when I feel comfortable, when I feel that the other person is attempting to understand who I am and has grasped sorry, GRASPED, grasped.
We know what you mean.
Okay, I mean, I normally don't have trouble with words, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Like when they have taken an understanding of who I am individually, and they say, women should be more soft, but you don't feel soft until you're protected. Like I need to know that when I'm walking down the street with you or in a space with you, that like I could sit with my back to the door and know that if someone comes, that like I'm gonna be protected. This whole idea of like, women need to be more soft, we need to be more this. We are all those things naturally, but depending on who we are around, those things come out more naturally. And I am, on a daily basis, like heavy boundaries, heavy walls, just because it's a protection. It's a protection mechanism that I developed as a kid. Like when I go out places alone, to be honest with you, don't nobody talk to me. Don't no man come over and say, hey, can I sit right here? Or none of that, because like of my energy, right? And I have that energy because You can't play, like, you're not gonna play in my fucking face. Like, what you
Yep.
talking? Like, what you doing? And
Yep.
I don't know you, and I don't feel comfortable with you being near me. So, like, why would I soften my edges for fucking what? Excuse my language, but for what?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not even about me having to change, because I do shadow work. I know who I am. I know, the parts of me that I still have to heal. But
Yes.
if you haven't done that work and don't know how to present yourself, that's on you. I don't
Yes.
need to change. You need to do that.
Yes.
You need
Yes.
to do that work. You need to sit in silence for a little bit and meditate or something.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And you mentioned something about, how can I be soft? How can I be expected to be soft if the world around me isn't creating that softness for me, right? Which is going to lead me to our next topic. Black women love and relationships. Now, I know someone in the chat, fathers do teach us how to be safe. We're going to get to fathers in this segment. I know earlier in the chat, someone asked, how did your fathers impact what you told yourself as a young girl? And I'm going to take it a step further and ask this question when we're going to move through this conversation around love. Twofold question. How did your fathers impact the things that you told yourself specific to love and relationships? What did you learn, right? Or maybe what did you not learn? And understanding that not all of us grew up with fathers in our household, or you can also answer that question in terms of what did your mother tell you or teach you about Black love and relationships? And second to that, what is Black love? What is it? Newly married, Miss Gordon, Mrs. Gordon, newly married, that's married now. I'm going to let you take the lead on that since you are newly married, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell me about, what's your definition of Black love now in this new chapter of your life and being in union and partnership with someone? And what were some of the things that you learned as a child about Black love and relationships, whether platonic or romantic or in sisterhood or family and community?
I would say let's start with the definition of Black love. It goes back to actually what my husband has taught me for so long.
Mm.
And that's knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It
Mm.
is with knowledge, it starts, and then wisdom, and then just really understanding. The understanding of, providing that space so that I could be soft, like Shakera said.
Yeah.
Being my protector. And it all started with my dad, though, right? I lived in a two-parent household. My mom was the second wife of my dad, so I have half siblings who are older than me, but I was baby girl. I was the princess. I didn't lift a finger, and when I say a finger, I mean it. I did not carry one grocery bag in my house. I did not take out a trash. I did not do anything. That was not my role. My role
Mm-hmm.
was to never sit in the front seat, not because I wasn't big enough, because princesses are chauffeured. I am to sit in the back seat because I am being chauffeured. My father has always taught me that. He has always opened every door.
Mm-hmm.
He has shown me how to survive too, because he's from the Army, right? Army in 13 years, retired as a captain. And so, no disrespect to my brothers, I have 4 of them, but no disrespect to them. I would say this: I'm my father's best son, right? And he has said that to me because he has told me 2 things. You will always be a princess, and one day you'll be a queen. When you meet your king, you'll be the queen of your house, but you will always know how to take care of yourself. Don't
That's
ever,
right.
ever, ever make yourself lesser than,
That's right.
because somebody else doesn't know how to take care of anything or something in the household. I
That's
have
right.
remodeled a bathroom with my father as a child. I know how to change oil, change a tire. I also know how to get dressed and show out. All right.
That's right.
I know how to
That's
do
right.
all that because that's what my dad said. That's
That's
who I
right.
am. I'm a princess. 17 years I've known my husband. We've been married for 1 month. 17 years I have known my husband, and like I said, he's taught me that it starts with knowledge, wisdom, and it's really, really about understanding, right? And he was the first person I dated that opened every door, that stood on the right side of the street, because you know you're not supposed to be by traffic. I'm sorry. If y'all don't know that, you're not
That's the
supposed to be
truth.
by traffic.
That's the truth.
To the
Mhm.
point
Never.
that even to this day, if you cross
That's
the
the truth.
street and you're supposed to change sides, he will not, he will flip out. Change
Yep.
sides.
Yep. Yep.
He pulls out my chair, and with every piece of me, he's the best support system I have. I have never had to think about, can I just tell him I have feelings? I want to talk. I want to talk about my feelings. You know, it's always just been like, I'm there for you. In the way he treats me in front of our children, it's going to show our children how to be, as my daughter, the only girl, how to be treated, and then show our boys how to treat women.
That's
Um,
right.
I think it's a mutual respect for us in our house, but I give it up to him. He's a great father and a great husband. He's been my great partner, great support system. But I don't think that I would have had that expectation if it
Yeah.
wasn't for my father. To
Yeah.
the point that I think our longest debate of a conversation used to be with my
Mhm.
husband, the trash. Why you don't help take out the trash? That's not my job. Like, that's not what I do. There's sons in this house. There's you in this house. My role, that's not what I do. So we've come to that conclusion now. But I will say that Black love, though, it really does. You have to be able to listen. You have to be able to converse. My grandmother said that if you can't take a 6-day bus ride, not 6-hour bus ride, a 6-day bus ride with the same person sitting right next to you, you can't brush your teeth every day, you just hungry, you got to use the bathroom, y'all done talked about everything. If you can't sit there and find comfort, you're with the
Mhm.
and I think the foundation of me and my husband's relationship was conversation. We could talk from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and forget that the sun ever went down and came up,
Yes.
because I'm comfortable, because
Yeah.
I'm soft around him. But as
Yes.
Daddy said, my husband has never made me choose. I don't ever have to choose whether to be soft or be strong. He
That's right.
encourages me to be both at the exact same time. And I
Yes.
give him all the credit because I don't know how to do it for him. I'm going to learn. But he encourages me to be soft, strong, who I am, on authentically who I am. I'm authentically Tiffani Joi Gordon. That's who I am. And that's how we built our love and foundation.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love seeing Black women in that space and being loved properly in whatever dynamic. I love that for you. I love that. And your whole house. Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
Anyone else? What have been
And
our experiences or definitions of Black love? What have we learned from our elders, our parents, folks? What have we learned?
I definitely want to chime in on this, primarily because for and I love what Joy shared, because it's a narrative that's so important. Women who were loved by their fathers, and how that had a direct impact on how they love their husbands or their spouses. And I think um, being a product of a single parent household, the beauty and difficulty of that, in that knowing how to run a household and seeing your parent run a household, and all of the dichotomy of that's not only important, but it also, I felt, being married, that my husband, who I'm grateful to him because he set a standard. Now, we were college sweethearts. Ninah, you know all about that.
Mm-hmm.
We were college sweethearts and broke apart and came back. And that is like literally the Cliff Notes version, because there's so much more to it. But the beauty in that is that because he set a standard while we were, and quite honestly, he was my first serious relationship, in that because we were so, he set a standard of, much to what you talked about, Joy. No, you're not going to hip hop your way on the other side of the sidewalk. I'm going to make sure that you are taken care of and you feel cared for. You can be vulnerable. You can be yourself. You can be silly. You can be geeky, all of those kinds of things. Um, because he set that bar so high that when I was out dating other cats, I was just like, no, like, this is not happening.
This is not Mr.
I shouldn't
Waters.
even be walking on this side of the road. Like, you know what I mean? Or there's a standard, you know? And when that standard wasn't met, I just was like, no, no, you're not the cat. You're not the cat. So anyway, when we came back, and by God's grace, we had done, in those 7 years while we were apart, had done so much work. Both of us, we had experienced so much life. But in our marriage, because, you know, both of us are products of single parent households, that we've had to do a lot of learning about, we knew how to care and love for one another. But for me, speaking as a, you know, as the wife, as a mother, just how learning how to not have to carry everything, and to allow him to not, you know, we both are carrying this. And there are periods and times, yes, in a marriage or a relationship, where one partner has to carry a larger percentage, because you're doing, you know, the 50-50 ideology is a myth. It just doesn't exist.
That's right.
It
That's right.
sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes
Yeah.
it's 75-25,
That's
sometimes
right.
it is 50-50.
That's right.
But there are no even balances, because life just doesn't work like that. And, you know, to your question about Black love, there are certain things and experiences that he may have as a Black man that he doesn't have to explain to me. There are experiences that I have that I don't have to explain to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a peace with that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not to come at anyone who's in an interracial relationship or partnership,
Mm-hmm.
just to explain that when I
Mm-hmm.
come home and I say, like, you know, oh, I was on the plantation today and Master was doing this, I don't have to explain the sarcasm behind that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yes.
and or I can say, well, you know, Karen was really cutting up today. He
Yes.
already knows what that means.
That's
You
right.
know?
That's
So
right.
you know what I
That's right.
mean? So I don't have to be, and I'm grateful my brother's on the call, my brother Kim Pedro, but in my life, even though I was raised by a strong Black woman, that God placed a lot of men, my piano teachers, um, you know, our pastor,
Yes.
you know, as father figures who really demonstrated manhood and how to be treated, and the standard of how I should be treated. You know, having those examples and seeing, like, and my one of my very close friends, and I don't even know if I ever mentioned this to her, but we're church family and very close friends, but her parents, who were pastors from, you know, the church I grew up in, the Adams. I love them to dearly, but seeing them in their marriage and watching how they treat one another, like, that was a barometer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think it's important that we have these examples, much to what Joy was saying, of Black love, because we need them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it helps to have that mentorship,
Yeah.
even if it's, you're just seeing it as a window, you know,
Yeah.
not that they're sitting next to you, but you're seeing it as a window. And so, you know, us having those examples and being a support for one another, you know, as women who are either married or want to be married, in whatever relationship that is. Relationships take work, they are hard, um, you know, but they are easy too. They're not, you know, there's an ease and then there's work. So it's all of it. It's all the things.
Absolutely. I think for me, when I think about lessons I was taught about love and relationships, I wasn't taught anything, right? And I think sometimes that happens in households where, single parent household, father is completely absent, right? So there's no blueprint or model of, Black male identity or manhood or anything like that. And, mom as single mom has tapped out, right? Because there are a lot of women older than us from that generation who's just like, well, I'm just not going to date until my kid's in college, right? Like I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to, right? And what I've learned now as an adult is that mind frame creates such a disservice and almost a dysfunction because we are not able to see our mothers in spaces of love and softness and in spaces of healthy love and softness, right? Because I think sometimes we think, oh, two-parent household, automatically it's roses and peaches and all the things. And, every family dynamic is different. Every relationship is different. And so, for me, where I am now, understanding that Black love and relationships does not have to be categorized or compartmentalized just to romantic or heteronormative relationships. Like in this season of my life, and I think it's always been that, but especially now in like my late 30s, is identifying sisterhood as a form of Black love, right? And identifying being in union and partnership with community as a form of Black love. You know, holding space for, I think someone wrote in the chat, Black queer love, right? And understanding that there are different facets and different representations of Black love, and they should all be uplifted. And they should all be, placed on a pedestal with care and with value to ensure that those spaces of Black love, whether heteronormative, heterosexual, two family, single family, married, or, that hood love, we've been together 20, 30 years, but we just not gonna get married, but it's just been us and our babies, that common law hood marriage, that. Or, queer love with in women and women, or, whatever, Black fluid love, or whatever your thing. That we identify all those spaces as opportunities of Black love. And I think for me, what I've learned, especially being in love with my sisters, and being able to be in love with a partner, which in turn has created a pathway for me to fall in love with myself and be in love and be in communion and union with myself, which I think sometimes is left out of when we talk about Black love. And as someone who has been in their first, I won't say serious relationship, but first healthy relationship. Kendrah will tell you, I used to really like them rough. If you sold drugs on campus, boy, was I looking for you, Woo! But coming away and moving out of that and decentering this idea that I think a lot of us, regardless of whether it's, a heterosexual, heteronormative relationship or not, as Black women being forced to subscribe to this idea of Black love and partnership as you need to stick it out, whatever it is, even if it's harmful, even if it's bad, stick together, that hood love, struggle love. And now that I'm coming into another chapter of my life and my womanhood, it's like, nah, I'm going to stick to what makes me feel safe. I'm going to stick to what makes me feel safe. I'm going to stick to what makes my children feel safe. I'm going to stick to what places me in a space to thrive as a Black woman in love, which then helps me thrive as a Black mother, helps my children thrive. seeing their mother in healthy love. And I think for me, what I've learned, especially over the last 2 years that I've been in this relationship with my current partner, is how love can present itself as a form of safety, but not physical safety, psychological and emotional safety. Like and I think sometimes we miss the mark when we're talking about safety as like always like a physical, and like, oh well, if my partner's in trouble, I'm beating, and it's like, that's great. But are you also making me feel safe in my mind? Are you making me feel safe in my heart space, in my spiritual body? Right. And that goes the same for being in love and being in union with sisterhood. In my relationship with this sister, are you creating a safe space for me as I am for you? And that goes the same, I think, for any Black centered relationship or dynamic. Any
I could
other
jump in for a
thoughts?
second.
Yes,
I want
please.
to jump in on this for a couple of reasons. First, Joy, consider Black love is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding stolen. I'm putting that on my t-shirts and billboards. I will give you a cut of the profits. Don't worry. But consider that stolen, okay? But I'm taking that because, as cliched as this is, the censored version of the statement, if you can't love yourself, how you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen? Is
That's a
true.
fact.
It
That's
just
a
comes
fact.
down to that. And if me loving myself, knowing myself, being
Mm-hmm.
wise with myself, understanding myself, healing, knowing what I still need to work on, knowing I'm not going to be perfect, because none of us are going to be perfect, but going into a space honest enough to say, hey, I still need to work on this. If this is a deal breaker for you, all right. But for me personally, I'm still working towards healing this part of myself. There may be people who will come on your life's journey who are the healing who are part of the healing you're looking for. Not in the sense that they're the person who's going to, latch you, because then that becomes trauma bonding. And we're not talking about that. But I think that knowing that you have to work on you first and heal, or at least do the work towards that, can really bring you towards somebody where no matter how the relationship works, be that the four kind of loves, book by Dick Mills, Eros, Storge, Phileo, and Agape, the erotic, the familial, the divine, and I'm forgetting the fourth one. Sorry, brain just stopped, but it's okay. It'll come. Oh, the familial, family, and Eros, Storge, Phileo, Agape, erotic, family, brother, sister. There we go. Philadelphia, Phileo, and divine. No matter what. And platonic, we don't talk about platonic relationship. My last relationship taught me that I deserve to be loved. And to Joy's point from earlier, it took me a while to feel comfortable letting somebody love on me, because I didn't, as someone who went to school and I went to school in Oklahoma, when somebody first opened the door for me, I'm like, okay, I'm from Philadelphia. What you want? Don't touch me. Don't open the door for me, man. I don't know who is, nigga. So the bottom line is, it took me a long time to be comfortable letting someone without ulterior motives, but purely loving me, take care of me. And I want to go back to one thing, just to generally answer your question. My parents were married for 40 years. My mother passed in 2017, daddy passed in 2022. But near like the last 15 years of their relationship, the dynamic shifted, and it became more that my mother was really very self-sufficient. My dad kind of backed up. The way I put it is, my mother reached for the stars, my dad kind of reached for the trees. And so there was an imbalance where by the time my mother passed, and my father really, really mourned my mother, because you can't, no matter how the relationship goes, you can't be with somebody for 4 decades and not feel something. By the time my mother passed, the way I looked at love was, if somebody comes along, that's great. If not, I got me, and that's all I need. But what I wouldn't acknowledge was that I built a hard wall around anybody coming in who would be what I'm looking for, because I become so self-sufficient that I hate to say this, but there's a quote from the movie Frida where someone says, I don't believe in marriage. At worst, it's a hostile political act. And it's a happy delusion. And so those gospels that were encouraged by other women who were as broken and as wounded as I was became gospel. And so unfortunately, there were things out there that were willing to love on me. But I would let it in because I was wounded, and I justified it by being a strong Black woman. Now, the cool thing about it is I knew my father loved me no matter what. I mean, I was a mommy's girl. My mother and I were glued to the hip. But one thing Louis Earls did, he loved him some Amber, and he didn't care who knew it. So much so that in my first relationship, and my father passed of dementia, among other things. In my first relationship, the person I dated for a couple of years, who was a white male, by the way, Italian guy. Actually, my dad kept saying, I need to meet him. And I'm like, Daddy, I don't want you to meet him because you're going to say something crazy. Because either it's just going to be you being a dad or it's going to be the dementia saying something that's going to embarrass me. And it wouldn't shake me. And so my former boyfriend was moving me in my apartment, giving me the condensed version. And my phone rang. And it was my dad. Again, my father with vascular dementia was calling his daughter. And I'm like, okay, God, I can't shake this, can I? And to make a long story short, my former boyfriend asked my father for permission to date me. And that was something that Louis Earls, be that overtly or otherwise, implied needed to happen for me. It's like, you had better not disappoint me as a suitor for my daughter's hand. And so regardless of my parents' dynamic or even what I had to heal from, when I look at Black love, no matter what kind of man I date, no matter what his background is, he had better understand my culture. He better understand that it's valuable to me. And he's going to get it wrong. One thing that we don't do sometimes in multiracial circles is, oh gosh, I'm trying to say this carefully. We don't talk about the dangerous, uncomfortable stuff because America's a heavily censored country to begin with. So if you're going to do this, no matter who you date or what they look like or how they identify, you're going to have to be honest enough with yourself to have the dangerous conversations. Because if you're not, then unfortunately you're just playing house or playing games. And I'm sorry, silly rabbit, chicks are for kids. We're too grown for this mess. So what I've learned is that no matter where I go in my next relationship, I have the right to lay down all of my weight to be loved in a way that for years, for a good 2-3 decades, if I'm being honest, I didn't believe I deserved to be loved. But it had to start with me.
Yep. That's so true. And I think a lot of us too, at least I know for me over the last, I want to say maybe 5 or so years. And I'm trying to find my words, but I think in a lot of ways, the same way we are conditioned to tie our womanhood or goodness as a woman in our ability to procreate and have children, I think sometimes even in Black spaces, our capacity to be in union or in marriage sometimes for some of us dictates our level of womanness or good womanness. And so, for me over the last couple of years, I've really been doing the internal work to move away from that, right? Like whether partnered or not, you're still a good woman. Like whether in union or not, you're still a good woman. Whether in love or not, you're still a good woman. Whether, you have babies or not, you're still a good woman. Whether fertility issues or not, you are still a good woman because you're just that. You are a good woman. And even understanding and breaking down further, like the definition of, well, what is a good woman? Because I think a lot of us have been, again, conditioned this idea to be a good Black woman is to take and take and take and take everybody's shit. And, I don't think that's a good woman, right? Like, I think to be a good woman is to be like, nah, get that shit out of here and away from me. Quick. And, I'm glad that so many of us, one, are being loved properly. And I'm glad that so many of us are loving ourselves properly. I'm glad that, that we are able to, whether in union or in partnership or not, able to radiate that love. Because a lot of us are around children, whether it's our own or babies that we teach or mentor. And I'm so happy that we are starting to redefine and understand what is Black love and making it more inclusive for different types of Black love and different types of Black people and different types of Black marriages and Black relationships and Black people. Like, I love that for us. And in speaking of love and relationships, let's talk about the election. Everyone was like, oh, the election. Now, I don't know about anybody else, right? Put some bourbon in that. I don't know about anybody else, but waking, that whole day, election day, I was on pins and needles because I kept, at one point I was like, all right, I'm not going to watch polls anymore because this is too much. Like I can't. But at one point I remember questioning, like, how are we so close? I thought this was a done deal. This was like, what's going on? Flag on the play, right? And that's when I was like, all right, I can't look at the polls anymore because this, okay. And, I said to myself before I went to bed, like, you know what? When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to wear my strand of pearls because I know Sister Greek is getting in that office. And I'm probably going to put some para on. And I'm really going to be extra today. And when I woke up, oh, the tears that flowed. And, my boyfriend picked me up to take me to work, and I was a mess. And he was just like, I mean, I know it's bad, but you okay? He calls me Sugar. He's like, Sugar, you okay? And I'm like, no. And I think for Black women, that disappointment was so familiar. And I think that's what was so hurtful, is that we were watching in real time what all of us experience, unfortunately, too often, where we are the most talented and the most gifted, the most educated, just the most incredible everything in the room. And it's like, oh, I know I'm a shoo-in. And it's like, wait, oh, okay. So we're going to go the other way, right? All right, cool. And
Girl.
then,
Oh my God.
being responsible for then having to then pivot from your grief and disappointment to immediately, I think I remember within the first 24 hours of election, Black women were being called to organize. And I was just like, yeah, can you give us a minute to grieve? Like, why?
I'm off it. Yeah, I want to tell you, like literally that day, a sister friend shared this Instagram post with me in my messages. And the nurse was like, I don't know, maybe some of you have seen it. She was like, listen, so my white coworker said to me, I voted for her.
Yep.
And the nurse was like, the Black woman was like, okay, and you may have, but your collective has spoken. Like your collective had a different mindset as to what was supposed to happen. She was like, Black women, we come together, we make the plan, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and the exterior, and all the other things that are supposed to happen. We tell y'all what the plan is. Y'all be like, all right, I'm with you. We take our swords and we charge on, and we head first, front lines. We look behind us, and y'all going in the opposite direction. And she was like, so for the next 4 years, like, we're done. We're done. We taking a break. And she said the lady looked at her in like surprise, and she was like, listen, you need to get with your collective, talk about the plan, the opening, the middle, and the end, and do what you need to do. She was like, but we taking off. And I watched it like probably like 4 or 5 times. And I shared it with my own sisters, but I watched it 4 or 5 times because I was like, she didn't say nothing that is not true. We be the first ones to be like, you know what? Okay, like, yeah, because here's what we need to do first. Here's what we need to do second. Here's how we wrap it up in the end, and this should be the end result. But y'all mother fathers didn't listen to the plan. Like, y'all heard it, y'all saw it. We put it in English in Comic Sans font for those who don't read well. And y'all was like, I ain't gonna do it. And then I saw a shirt. I haven't gotten it yet, but it said 92% of Black women voted for your health too, or like for your healthcare or something like that. I saw it on the Instagram. It's like 92% of Black women voted for your health, for your life too, for your health. But like, it's the idea of going with the norm, or what you think the norm should be, right? Or what you're used to, instead of standing up for the people that you have, that you call your friends, that you call your daughters, that you call your coworkers, that you go to brunch with on Sundays. Like, none of that was considered. Like, you considered, oh, well, my husband, makes this and blah, blah, blah. And you considered, oh, well, I have choices. I have my white choices. I have my my white choices. I have my privilege. So I'm gonna be good. But you were never thinking about the other people who are not going to be good. And also considering the fact that y'all literally just got your rights. I mean, we got ours after they did, right? But y'all literally just got your rights. Y'all couldn't buy a house. Y'all couldn't have a credit card. Y'all couldn't have a car.
Nothing.
Y'all couldn't have nothing.
Yep.
I mean, it's what, like 30, 40 years ago, maybe, if I'm quoting history correctly. And you always wanted for us to take care of you, to make sure that everything was in order. I mean, y'all ain't never hired no white waitresses. Even now, I mean, not waitresses, cleaning people, housekeepers. Even now, Black and brown people still taking care of y'all.
Yep.
You didn't give a flying fuck about nothing other than yourself. And now you have what you have.
Yep. Did I cancel class that week? I did. I canceled my class that week because I was just like, oh. And when I went to work, post-election, we had a meeting with a community partner, a white woman. And, I work at Wakanda. And, we probably should have worked from home that day because the way we lit her up in that meeting, like, we just was not feeling it the next day. And when I resumed class the following week, I always like to give my students space to process themselves outside of being a scholar. One student asked, like, how could this happen with all of the evidence and all, like, and I remember saying something like, because the benefit of continuing to lay in bed with white supremacy and racism will always supersede the benefit of collective liberation. Because, when Black people are freed and fully liberated, that also means liberation for everyone else. And what white supremacy and racism teaches us is that full and collective liberation means less money, less profits, less power, less authority, less prisons that will be filled, like all of these things. And so even though they know what they know, but they also know that there's a greater benefit to continuing systems of oppression, even if it means, as we're seeing now, like, we are literally on fire and not in a good way. And yesterday I was seeing online clips of, well, over the last 2 days, 2 interesting clips that I remember seeing, with the swearing in of that senator and the husband who refused to shake Sister Greet's hand. That shit pissed me off. Because that's exactly our experience every day. And the clip that I saw yesterday with folks being really upset and now questioning, our forever president Barack, like, oh, how could you sit there and geek? That's our experience every day in the workplace. Like, having a ha kiki and perform in this setting, because the minute I step out and give you nothing, then it would have been what? Like, oh, he's classless. Look how aggressive. How could a former president act like that at a funeral? And that's probably why Michelle stayed her ass home. She said, I will not bring my Black ass there. I will not. And I'm glad she did. I'm glad. Stay home. And I hope that a lot of us as Black women, figuratively and literally stay home. This is not our fight. We've done enough, and we are tired. Kendrah, you went off mute. What you want to say? I know you got some tidbits.
Listen, everything you just said, exclamation points. I will say, and I do want to share a story that connects to exactly what you just said, where this was the year of Black women have had enough.
Yeah.
After the election, I couldn't post. I didn't want to discuss it. I didn't want to go on social media. The added thread for me was when we found out the results, because it just wasn't looking good that night.
Mm-mm.
And feels like we got to turn this off.
Yeah.
And we're going to bed.
Yeah.
Because this is too much.
Mm-hmm.
Waking up, having to tell your 7-year-old son who had really been fighting for Kamala to get, and him being afraid to go to school, wondering if this joint was going to burn down. Like, it was all the things. And so having to go then into a predominantly white space where it had already been established, and I want to give the story, the background to walking into a space where a leader during a training says, oh, well, I just want to take a minute to discuss the very atrocious situation that happened this summer. And I'm thinking, what the hell happened this summer? Like, where was I? And I said, oh, am I not remembering things? And it was just, let's pull out the candles, where are the violins? And so he says, well, when the shooting. And I said,
the
shooting?
You want to talk about the shooting?
And I said, well, what shooting are you talking about? The shooting of President Trump, this very atrocious situation in our American history.
I don't even understand. Kendrah.
Listen, at that point, it was me and one other Black
I'm leaving early. See y'all
instructor in the meeting. Everyone else was melanin deficient. And I looked around and I said, am I in a scene from Black Mirror? Or is this... I was just so confused. And I let this leader talk about how he was so worried about his child and, oh, how's our country going to react? And I allowed this leader to talk. And I said, let me explain something to you in front of all of them. I said, do you realize, number one, he walked away with his life. The blood looked fake. He walked away with his life. And I said, the fear you have for your child, the fear that we've been, as Black people, walking around with since the inception of this country, since we've been here, are the fear you have for your children. And I said, I have 2 Black sons.
That's right.
And a Black man that I'm married to who walks out of here where for centuries we've been dealing with our people being lynched, wrongly accused, wrongly incarcerated, harmed for no reason, that just the organ that I carry around, all of that is perceived as danger. And I said, let me also be very clear too, that Black people also we don't walk around with this cloud of inferiority either.
That's right.
Y'all have the issue. And I said, do you realize how culturally insensitive what you just shared as an atrocious situation, how offensive that is, how wildly racist, like wildly racist what you just said was. And again, this leader could not provide any type of response.
Of course not.
You know, you are speaking from a position of like, I just can't, it's hard to quantify into words because it's so wild how oblivious.
Yeah.
And not to paint out that all white people have this type of viewpoint. There are a lot of white folks who are in the trenches with us and who are doing the work.
Yes.
But what's striking is the number of people, and I had another colleague, and again, I work in a predominantly white space. I had another colleague say to me, I said, oh, you know, how's your family? How's everyone? Blah, blah, blah. Well, my son really can't find a job. And I just figured after, you know, the election, everything would go, it would be fine. Everything would go back to normal.
Blissfully ignorant, Kendrah. Blissfully ignorant.
These are the conversations that are going on. And I said, well, honey, you better buckle up because this cat hasn't even walked into the office yet.
And already. And
I said, everything
you thought your privilege was going to sprinkle.
It sprinkled and everything was going to change. All of these things were going to change. There was no concern. He was the magic that was going to be sprinkled everywhere. Our economy is going to magically erupt into us thriving and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it is, to me, in my own thoughts, it is just demonic. Like, that's the only way you can describe it as. This cat wants to dismantle the Department of Education, take away senior citizen Social Security. I mean, it's insane.
It's insane. Like, I just, you know, so there's a brilliant Black woman scholar, Dr. Joy, who does a lot of work on post-traumatic slave disorder. And in her analysis of white supremacy and racism, she talks about this level of delusion that folks who subscribe, because folks who subscribe to white supremacy and racism, they don't always have to be white. You know, there's a level of cognitive dissonance that has to be put in place to justify, even though this is so inherently and blatantly egregious and ridiculous, I'm going to disillusion and distance myself from the truth to justify my comfort in the privilege that is given to me, and also to justify the bombardment of violence and oppression against those who do not look like me. And what I was hoping was going to happen after the last time with the 4 years was that people were going to look and see things for what they are. And, you know, it brings me back to this whole thing of like anti-intellectualism. Like, there were folks who were voting like, oh yeah, the tariffs are going to help our economy. No, it's not. It's not. Or there are folks who, I'll never forget the first time around with, what's his name? I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, when he was on the street asking people like, you know, how do you feel about Obamacare? And then would also ask people, how do you feel about the Affordable Health Care Act? And they're like, oh, I can't stand Obamacare, but the affordable, and it's like, yeah. We are in trouble.
And mind you, it's literally the same thing. Like, you're so freaking like mentally disordered.
Yes.
You're so freaking mentally disordered that you can't even understand that what you're talking about that you hate is literally the same thing that you need.
Or benefiting from. You are literally benefiting from these
You're
policies.
Literally benefiting from it.
Voting against your own interests.
Crazy. Like, I remember seeing a post, I think within a week of the election, of some company, I don't know what the hell they make. Well, let's say they make, I don't know, clipboards or something. Some company that makes clipboards in the hills of white America. I don't know. So every holiday season, this company this company gives out, generous holiday bonuses to their employees as a holiday gift. And so someone up in leadership in that company, went online and said, he had to call an emergency meeting with the entire company and explain to the employees that, and these are like, basic level, wage level, frontline employees who are working in the factories, right? That they would not be receiving a holiday bonus this year because of the election, because their finance department had to pivot quickly to order massive amounts of supplies from overseas before the tariff plan goes into action. And so this and it's a white man, and he was talking about how detrimental folks who put this person back in office, how it causes such chaos and destruction for us as Black people, but for everyone. And it's like, well, it just almost gets to a point where it's like, what do you say? Other than like a shoulder shrug, and it's like, best of luck to y'all over the next 4 years. Don't ask us for shit.
But I hate to say this though, and maybe my perspective is a little different. We don't have that luxury.
No.
And I get that we're exhausted. I get we're tired of bucking and shucking. I understand that a lot of us weren't surprised. I was sick a couple of weeks ago and I was in bed recovering, and somehow I wound up binge watching Blackish on Hulu, and I rewatched the Lemon episode, and it was basically history repeating itself. And one thing Anthony Anderson said was, even if, and I'm putting Kamala into what he said, even though he said it then, even if Kamala had won, let's face it, a lot of us still wouldn't have believed it would have gotten better the way we're looking for things to improve, because it's not one person who's going to fix this broken, jacked up, historically inaccurately messed up system. It's going to take a lot of us going in deep into almost 400 years of history to really uproot this from the inside out. I mean, when I was watching the election, I got a call from one of my best friends, and he ironically, he said to me, for the first time in my life, I'm leaning on God and I know it's going to be okay. And I'm watching the same thing he's watching, and I'm like, I think you're absolutely right. And especially if that's true, and I personally believe it is, it's going to take some real divine intervention to fix this. To Kendra's point, there's something really demonic and wicked about all this mess. But then near the end of us watching it, I said to him, I'm scared. And he said, Amber, I'm really trying to keep my head in a space where I don't have to think about that. If we can just keep faith and keep going, it's going to be fine. And he was really holding on to that truth. And I said, that's totally okay. Then about 2 minutes later, I said, wait a second. You just shut down my emotions as a Black woman expressing herself in a safe place, and America is simultaneously doing the same thing. And you think that's all right? And it kind of shut him down like, whoa. I didn't mean to do it that. I said, but see, in this very small moment, you are exemplifying what the bigger problem is, as we're literally watching Rome burn. Or now, well, I shouldn't say America's burning, but it kind of is. We'll call it a spade, right? And so to me, when I woke up that next morning in tears, like I didn't know I was crying while I was sleeping, everyone else was kind of in mourning. And I had a gig that day that we actually canceled because it was like, we didn't have the energy. But something in me said, everyone else is feeling the heaviness of this. I don't know why I can't. For some reason in me, it's like, we got to get to work. And yes, I'm exhausted. Yes, I'm tired. One stroke in my life is enough for me, and I am never having another one because mama ain't. But that said, however, we don't really have the, dare I say, freedom to rest about this. Because the question was asked or implied a few moments ago, what kind of number are you looking for? Homeboy Orange Fulius has in writing that he is denying exists because Project 2025 is a lie, paying no attention to the man behind the curtain, a plan to bring back something normal so that, heaven forbid, we have to drink from Blacks only fountains again. So quite frankly, we really can't rest. And I mean, I hate this, but we kind of have to push back. We don't have any other options. We don't.
I don't know. So I follow this account called Nap Ministry, the Nap Ministry. And during that week,
Love Nap Ministry.
Yes, they were pushing out content, And it made me even kind of take a step back and look at rest and turning inward as a tool of resistance. And how, especially for Black women, you know, over the next 4 years, the work, like for me, it's like, okay, I know that there's work that has to be done. How do I do that in a way that still honors my humanity because I'm not a machine? And how do I do that in a way where I can still find spaces of rest and joy? Or is that resistance and liberatory work being in a space of rest and joy, right? And like over the last like, you know, month or so of the year that just passed, just really thinking about, do we as Black women, I mean, as Black people overall, of course, but especially Black women, because I think when we talk about like Black resistance and Black revolution and liberation, it often comes from a Black male-centered space, even though Black women are the one who keep the tempo. You know, how do we as Black women individually resist and collectively within our communities resist without being a martyr?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Black love. It's
Yeah.
about knowing your limits. It's about respecting them and not yielding. And to Kendra's point from quite a while ago, knowing how, in this case, to say no. But I also think that because sometimes we got some knuckleheads who don't know how to use common sense we were born with, we take it and we run with it and just say, we're just going to lie down on if it burns, it burns. And I know that's a bit of a cliched, flippant statement, but I'm trying not to say it because that's literally what's happening right now. And so in a way, yes, knowing myself and knowing my limits, and when, again, I start to stammer and I'm losing my words, okay, Amber, what does that mean? It means that you're stressed out. You need to slow down. This is not happening again. So I think what it comes down to is knowing that you have to love yourself enough to not jump, as my mother would say, go to every party you're invited to. But dare I use a Beastie Boy cliche, fight for your right to party. It's about knowing that balance and knowing that lying down is something we can't do, but resting is something we must do. Leave us alone.
I like that. Lying down is something we can't do, but rest is a must. I love that. I love that. Anybody else? Any thoughts on the election or how we felt post-election? Any thoughts before we move on to our final and closing question and remark?
I know this isn't going to be
that was a good question.
Popular opinion, but he won the election from ignorance, and ignorant people voted. And these people might be scholars or excel in other things in other areas of their lives, but ignorance won the election. And ignorance has always been the thing that people who aren't safe-minded, I might not even be thinking about, I'm thinking about another word that I can't put my mind or my thoughts on yet, but it's, he won by keyboard bandits. He won by the interwebs and the Twitters and the Facebooks. And he won because we have a lot more perverted people in this world. And perverted, and I'm not talking about the sense of just, we think of the word perverted as something.
Sexually deviant.
Sexually deviant. Perverted could just be, I don't want that group of people to have something. We, unfortunately, just like Amber was saying, when I woke up the next morning, I was disappointed. I was like, damn, like, shit. We went through this before in 2016. It's like, what? It's all right. Well, I'm going to have to keep my sleeves rolled up for the next 4 years because I don't know what's going to come my way. So if I shared this with you all when we had our first Roundtable. When he was elected in 2016, I went out 2 days later. I was out on Lincoln Drive running, jogging. I'm running, minding my business, And it was early afternoon. And this man comes by and he pushes me and he says, "Go back to African nigger." And I'm rolling and I'm rolling. I'm watching what's in front of me, the Schuylkill, the water. I don't know how to swim. So I just knew I was just going to be a goner. I'm clumping dirt and clawing at it and everything. Get myself together. And I hurt myself, but I got myself together enough to, and I didn't even realize I had this much strength in me. My brother said it was nothing but adrenaline. I wailed on this man's face.
I know that's right. I was waiting for you to say it. I know that's
Girl,
I
I
know
was
that's
waiting.
right.
Me too.
And
Like,
I'm waiting. I'm
come on
waiting. Like
now.
I know
this
Sis
day,
Edwin.
Come on now.
With
I
Strength
them
of the
believe this.
ancestors. You punched
the
him right in the
ancestral
face.
hands
Yes.
and
Yes.
ancestral hands.
but to this day, I am ashamed at that power that I had because he lost his fronts.
Good.
Top four and the
He
bottom.
looked around and found out. Like, what
Yeah.
you doing? Like, what? Like, you can't just be
Yeah.
pushing people.
Yeah.
Lucky there wasn't a lawn chair hanging around.
All I saw, yeah, all I
That's the
saw was
facts.
my
Where was the
life
chair?
flashing. All I could see was my life flashing before my eyes. And I was saying to myself then, like, this is what we working with now. And that's that's what I thought of the day after some weeks ago. That's the only thing that I could think of. That visual on Kelly Drive and then having to get myself together to like get ready for this again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to get into another physical altercation with somebody. But if I have to, and then and you're gonna hit me first, I'm gonna hit back because I'm not just gonna let you hit me. But
Yep.
all of what I'm trying to say is, and a lot of our own people,
Yes.
a lot of our own people who think maybe they think they're gonna get another stimulus check. Yet it's not gonna happen. Maybe they're grateful that they got that stimulus check back during the pandemic.
Which Trump
It's
can
not
I just say about these damn stimulus checks, because that was a running thing this year.
Yeah,
Trump
it
had
was.
nothing to do with the goddamn stimulus checks. In fact, we would have gotten it a lot sooner had his bitch ass not
Yeah.
taken so long because he wanted his signature on it. That was a constitutional right. Like I
Yeah.
want us to find our 10th and 11th grade civics and government textbooks.
Yes.
But continue, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Every time I hear
Say it
about
for the
stimulus
people in
checks,
the
I
back.
just
Yeah. I mean, were you thanking them now because you got a stimulus check then? That's not the reason to vote. And if you signed up to vote, I would rather have you not registered to vote.
at all.
That's all what you voted for.
Or vote for another party. Like there were so many other
But
mm,
the internet won again. The internet got him elected.
yeah,
And I just, now I'm like, here we go again.
yeah.
So we gotta fight, but this time we have to be cautious I brought up that whole scenario with Kelly Drive and everything with now I learned from that altercation, when I feel myself getting besides myself, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to refuel because I don't want to do anything crazy or I don't want to say anything crazy while I'm in this fight to get things done.
I wanted to add, and thank you for being so vulnerable for sharing that story, Teresa. And it just flashed me back to I forget what year was it where there was that the guy took the folding chair. What
Yeah.
year?
That was that was like almost 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And there are periods where we just have had enough.
Yep.
And so the hands have to be thrown, the chairs have to be used.
Yep.
You know, and I you know, listen, that's the Malcolm X part of me. I am, you know, and the Dr. King part of me too. But, you know, Toni Morrison always said that she thought that racism was a profound neuroses. It is a true mental health condition that people who suffer from it, they need to get help. They need help. And it not only impacts those who you are trying to oppress, but it impacts the oppressor as well. The fact that you mentally think that it is okay to vote against your own interests, like that is
it's crazy.
It's nuts.
It's crazy.
It's mental health. And I often say, like, oh, no, that's mental illness. Like, no, that's mental health. Like, this is beyond you just cooking things up or you hip hopping around. No, you have a mental health condition that needs professional deliverance. You need God and professional deliverance.
I need for you to know
divine
that
intervention, the whole thing.
All of it.
When I went to Ghana, I think it was about 7 years ago now, and I was at Cape Coast, and the man who was, you know, giving us our tour, he said that at this particular castle was like the first church ever like erected in Ghana. And he said that as he's given the tours over the years, he would think to himself, because downstairs in the dungeon area is where they kept our ancestors, and they were up in the church, you know, having praise and worship and shit. And he was like, I had to think to myself, like, how could this be? Like, you up here praising God, but you've got enslaved people downstairs. And for me, it resonated that, well, it's a genetic mental illness. It's genetic. And this is like hundreds of years ago. This is genetic. Like, and they got bestiality in their ancestry. Just putting it out there. Just saying.
Like, you know, hey.
Right. So like, so like so to speak to what Kendrah is saying, yes, it's genetic mental illness. That, and in order for it to be corrected, those who aren't heavily as affected have to acknowledge that their people have an issue, but they're not going to do it because then that would jeopardize the privilege that they stand in.
Yeah, it would jeopardize the privilege, and it would mean that you would have to take that ugliness and turn it inward.
Yes.
And you would see how ugly your soul is.
Yes. Yes. And admit to it.
Yeah. And admit to it. And I mean, speaking from another perspective, and I truly believe it, that we are in a season, and what's to come is a season that, for myself, is going to be heavy laden with prayer. And quite honestly, this is beyond us just, you know, cold calling or whatever. Yes, each one of us, we will all deliver our fight in different ways. But my heavy lift, my form of resistance is going to be through prayer.
Yes.
And that is, for me, that's what our ancestors have done, that we've prayed and protected and have done the work. And I think, because when you think about how is it that with all that Black people have endured, it literally would have wiped us, just wiped us off the face of the earth if we didn't have faith and community.
Yes.
And for us to have these conversations, the opportunity to process some of our experience, it is critical to our continued existence. And how do we learn how to live with one another when we see that there are people who are just so lost, just lost? And a lot of that has to do with having conversations like this, praying for people, showing up, undergirding one another. All of that is critical for us to survive, and we can't predict what's going to happen in the next 4 years, but much to all of your points, we won't find out. And some folks are really going to find out the error of their decisions.
Yes.
And that's just what it is.
Yes.
That's just
absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned the future, because perfect segue to our last topic, which is something that I always like to talk about, Afrofuturism and Black women. What does the future of Black women and our experiences look and feel like? And this is open to anybody. What does the future of Black women look and feel like? And knowing what you know now, where you are now in your Black womanhood, and knowing what's to come, as Kendrah said, over the next 4 years and beyond that, right? Because the next 4 years actually might not be that bad. It might be what happens after whatever's implemented in the next 4, right? But anyway, because we'll be here for another 10 hours. What would you tell your future self?
I could start.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to kind of what I told my younger self. Told my younger self to just keep going, right? My future self is more like, yeah, keep going. But this time, so before it was like discovering myself.
Yeah.
But now I'm more so know myself. So Kendrah said we serve a different purpose. We're gonna do this with a different purpose. And so I really want to walk in my purpose, authentically me, and just realize they're not like us. And so I'm gonna keep going. They're not like us. I'm gonna keep going. I'm me. I'm special. I'm different. They're not like us.
Love it. Love it. I'll go next. When I think about the future of Black women, what does it look and feel like? I think it's going to look and feel joyful, even in seasons like pressing seasons or seasons of resistance. I think it's going to look expansive and dynamic and have multiple facets and complexities, because that's just who we are as Black women. I think that we are at a critical turning point when we think about the future of Black women, because of access to so much with social media and information and knowledge. But I see a lot of us kind of recentering and repositioning and questioning a lot of the things that we've been taught and exposed. So I think the future for Black women is bright, as it's always been, because we are that. Like, we are of God, we are of the cosmos. So why wouldn't the future for us be bright? Something I would tell my future self. Ooh, your best and strongest tools of resistance is your intellect and your authenticity and your ability to tap into your spiritual self beyond, like, from a religious space, but really, really tap into that ancestral gifts and those ancestral knowledges and things that we receive in dreams and all those things. Because that's who we are. Like, there's no way we can separate resistance from spirituality, or separate resistance from, like, divine womanhood. That's where I'm at. Who else wants to take that? What's the future for us?
I think we're at the turning point of beginning to realize who's for us and who's against us. And I'm not talking about people who don't look like us.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the ones who do look like us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're at the turning point of, oh, okay, that's a Sambo. Sambo right there. Sambo, Sambo over there. So I'm not going to align myself with that kind of energy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, people like that have learned to operate incognito, and they're with you up to a certain point. And then it's either they do a lot of running and telling. I call it run, tell that.
Mm.
So we're at the beginning stages of us realizing as Black women and Black people, period, that we are people. I can feel it and I can see it. They're aligning themselves with people who are generally in love with your humanity and your emotions and your Blackness.
Yes.
What I would tell my future self is that uh listen and don't.
Mm. Mm.
You get more out of people when you don't say a word,
Mm.
um, and then react. Then you know how to align yourself. You know where to go. I mean, that's what our ancestors did. They didn't have internet. They didn't have TV. They had drums, cornrows, rice, and music for the
Mhm.
most part. And
Mhm.
more with that than what we're doing on the internet now.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
That's what
Mhm. Amber, I saw you praising over there. What were you about to say?
I'm taking notes. Somebody else go. Come back to me. I'm writing things down.
Amber said, I gotta write down all these jewels.
Oh my gosh, so funny. I don't know. For me, I would say two things. Thinking of like the future of us and future of myself. Well, the one would be to speak in your power. Um, Simply because actually piggybacking a little off of what Teresa was saying, like I've always been the listener. Um, and so me, I'm in my era of like speaking more and like, saying what needs to be said and not kind of like shying away from that or hiding from that. So yeah, I definitely would say speaking your power because like it's there. So just pull from it and share it. And I only really see it or feel it come out when I'm teaching and I'm in front of the room, but it just needs to happen more in other spaces with other people. And so that's the one thing. And the second thing is trust the magic. And I say that because they don't call it Black Girl Magic for nothing, right? It's a thing, something that carries us, when, people are like looking at us, no matter what we're dealing with, it's like, wow, how does she still have such grace? How does she still have such integrity? How does she have such this and that? And it's the magic,
Yes.
AKA the Holy Spirit or whatever, it is that you're pulling from. Like, that's, the thing that you have to go back to and trust when doubt is surrounding you. And so moving forward, that's just something really important to remember, like those things are already placed there. We just have to pull from them. And to
Mm. Yes, I love that. It's the magic. Yes. Anyone else?
Okay.
Shakera, where are we at in the future, Shakera?
Oh, do you think, Ms. Jones?
Let me see. I want us to be naturally. Okay, wait, no, wait. I declare and decree
Woo.
Black women, Black people will be able to be soft and not necessarily lower the boundaries, but know when it's okay to open the gate.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I
Mhm.
foresee
Mm.
I foresee more rest. I foresee more abundance and prosperity. I foresee being able to really tap in like to what we need before we give to others. Because we can't pour from an empty cup, as they say, right?
That's
And just being like centered and like in a peaceful space and being able to rise up when necessary, but not like overdoing the thing. Like we naturally like just overdo and overgive and overlove and overshare and over. But like, let's just like do what's required
Mhm.
and be still
Mhm.
If more is required and spirit says, go ahead and do it, then let spirit lead us to do it. But we should not and shall not just do it because that's what we naturally do. Because that's how, you know, we get like siphoned, or like how people plug in, and then at the end of it all, we're like, oh God, like where'd my energy go? We are only giving energy to the things that move us, that serve us, and that will provide for us. That is it.
Yes. I love it. Amber.
If the hurt didn't kill you, you can't die.
Ooh.
If the hurt, I'm gonna say that twice just because it got in my soul. If the hurt didn't kill you, you can't die. In listening to everyone over the last couple of hours, I'm noticing that history, even in talking about our experiences compared to that of, again, I referenced my nieces who, my eldest niece is a senior at Cheltenham High School. She's about to graduate from my school, y'all. Oh my goodness. And she's 18. And yet I'm seeing a lot of the same patterns that we're talking about. Whatever influences your soul, you'll try to attach to it so you can feel validated.
Yes.
I am glad that we have these spaces where community, and to echo what I said in the very beginning of this conversation, and the power of Black women coming together brings forth an energy that is unmatched anywhere. But to kind of echo Jones's sentiment, resting is key. And I think in order to keep history from unnecessarily repeating itself, that is our patterns of, you know, goodness, burnout, and having to be everywhere, being everything everywhere all at once. At some point, you kind of have to pause, because just because it didn't kill you doesn't mean you're supposed to die. And I think a lot of times we lie down and say, well, that's what grandma did. She cut the top of the ham off in the oven too. I don't know why she did it, but I'm going to do it also. She died of diabetes. He died of high blood pressure. My parents died of cancer. That is not my calling, nor is it's not my script, and I won't do it. And so I think that Afrofuturism looks like, if we're not careful, history unnecessarily repeating itself. But I repeat this on purpose. If it didn't kill you, you can't die. So I think that if we decide to draw a line in the sand this time and fight wisely, because I do believe there's a remnant that's going to not take this line down at all. They're going to come bucking and shucking, playing "Try Jesus, Not Me" as the anthem. I really do think that remnant of the remnant is going to go down and blazing rather. And what I would say to my future self, I would say, stay latched to God, because you are limited and you are obedient, but you are not so high that you need to leave yourself vulnerable. I am so over it. I am not Superwoman. I'm quite a queen. I mean, one thing I love about I'm gonna say this earlier. One thing about Black hair is it defies gravity because it grows up and not down. So that in and of itself is amazing.
Yes.
But what? Amber 2030, Amber 2026. Amber is going to trust in her God, hold on to him with all her might, and know that if it can't kill me, I'm not dying. And it's as simple as that.
I know that's right. Yes. Yes. If it can't kill me, I'm not dying. Period. Anyone else before we do our closing remarks, which I feel like we kind of already naturally did, which is crazy. What's your hope, prayer, affirmation for Black women? It's like we already.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yes, future Dr. Butler-Waters, educator extraordinaire and future consultant and education reform activist.
Lord have mercy.
All the things.
You know, I'm going to say for us, and this is something that it's taken me years to accept. And I think part of that is to unapologetically shine and to know that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that in and of itself is also a form of resistance. Because I think even though my persona is that of humility, that me shining, you all shining, that it is important for others to see that, because it gives them the permission to do the same. And that our shine collectively uplifts us as Black women.
Yes.
And that if God gave us these gifts, he gave us these gifts not for ourselves, but to honor him and to allow others the opportunity to do the same. And so it is so important that we allow our light to shine in whatever capacity we've been called to do it.
Yes. 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 I love that. Yes. Yes. Any other comments or thoughts on the future of Black women, or prayers and affirmations for us as we move to the future?
I
Ain't
think a
we
lot
it
of
though? We it though. Like it's
Yeah,
us. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I just want to say, and I'm guilty of it too. We don't toot our horns enough.
No,
no.
Yeah.
we don't.
We don't. And I used to think, God, that's bragging though. Like, oh man. No. Yeah, that's it. That, just like you were saying earlier, it's a form of resistance. So
Mhm.
talk about that accomplishment. Talk about
Yes.
that competition, that grant, that thing you wrote or did or went somewhere, because these are the things that brings us joy.
Yes.
And we're going to need a whole lot of that to get through what we're getting through. And even if
Yes.
the election didn't even happen like this,
Yep.
we still will need it. We still would
Yep.
need it. We still
Yep.
would, because it would be
Yep.
a different kind of fight if she was in office. If yeah, it would be, who knows, the stuff
Yeah.
that we can't even think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's yeah, just everybody, just toot your own horn, talk about yourselves more, talk about your accomplishments more, because nobody else is.
But also every mediocre white ass man doing it right now. So
Yeah.
we might as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might as well pop our shit.
Pop your shit. Yeah.
Before we close officially, I want to first thank everybody for their vulnerability. Like, there's so many gems and I mean, we definitely doing this again soon. But I want to open it up to the floor. Are there any questions for those who are on the call, any of our guests? And thank y'all for staying with us and spending your Saturday with us, because this was amazing. Any questions? You can feel free to turn your camera on if you want to, or write it in the chat. Any or comments or anything from our guests at our table. I was about to say, don't jump all at once. And I was like, Ninah, you are not teaching right now. Because that's something I always say, like, don't all jump at once, y'all. We here till 5:30.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hey, Nancy.
Hi, Kendrah. I just want to say, oh my God, I feel so emotional. Kendrah, I love you. We work together in Hatboro Horsham. And for whatever reason, Kendrah just dropped that today in our sister circle group chat. And I was like, you know what, God, I'm going to get on here because Kendrah said. Because when Kendrah drops something, you know that, like, it's fact, it's what it is, because she's not a person of a lot of words, but when she speaks, it is what it is. And I needed this so badly today, because I mean, with every one of you I have connected, but I'm trying to find my way. I'm just newly an empty nester. I've been divorced. I've been a K-12 admin, gone out, come back in, so many different things. But to try to remember who Nancy is, I've gotten lost along the way. And I've had to dumb down myself, because to make everybody else in the room feel comfortable. And it's like, but I knew within myself I was more than that moment because of my parents and family and community. And so I'm just getting that footing. And I was like, God, I just need something. I just, I need something. And so I just want to say again, I appreciate all of you for your vulnerability today, your honesty, being forthright, because I needed that. It spoke directly to my spirit. And I want to know I'm leaving here stronger than when I came in, more determined than when I came in. And I'm going to honor each and every one of you as I move forward in this journey, because I feel a new sense of self and also representation, because we're responsible for what we hear. And I've heard every single one of you. So I want you to know that I'm standing on your shoulders. I'm 54. I'm standing on the shoulders of the young ones because I learned something today. We never stop learning.
Yes.
So I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you. Continue to do God's work. Continue to walk in it. And the next time you see something, please make sure you tell me, because I am here. And I'm going to share it and open it up to other people as well. So God bless everybody. I appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you, Miss
Nancy, can we just
Beautiful,
see those
Nancy.
nails, please?
Nam,
Nails.
Nam,
Can
go
we
like
see
this.
the nails? Go like this, please.
Don't let them play in your face.
I'm
Don't let them play in your face.
I'm the flow, Joe. That's me.
Yes. The whole time you were talking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to start crying. And then I saw like your pinky nail. I was like, oh, her nails. That's the nails.
Oh
yes. I'm so happy you were able to receive from today. Yes. Anyone else? Yes. Are we doing this once a quarter? I mean, I guess we being called to.
We gonna have to. Nancy, thank you so much for your transparency. That was beautiful.
That was beautiful. Yes, absolutely. This God-fearing Indigenous and Black man loves and supports you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Sam.
Thank you.
I think
Awesome.
Mama T wants to fall in. Go ahead, Mama T.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies, everyone. Kendrah, thank you so much for sending me this link. When you first sent it to me, I was in the middle of a vocal lesson and I could not jump on, but as soon as I was free, I said, hey, is this today? Because I had to be a part of it, and I'm thankful and grateful for you ladies. I feel like I can see the light at the end of a very, very long, dark tunnel.
Yes.
And I truly believe, in spite of the way we are played, in spite of the way society views us, I feel our future is going to be that we're going to finally start working together.
Yeah.
We're going to finally start loving on each other, appreciating one another, stop fighting each other, stop competing with each other, and come together. And then we're going to find out exactly why God started with us first. We're going to find exactly why we are what's here.
Yes.
Because if we go by history,
yes,
we've been carrying all along.
Yes.
We've been strong. And now we lost ourselves. But I feel like we're come back. And I'm far off. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to it. And what I would my future self is continue to be the example.
Yes.
Continue to be the example. Because we have to show those. We have to show the little ones. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter. By the time she's my age, I want her to be able to say, "This is the foundation that was laid. I know who I am. I know why I'm here. I know my purpose." So, ladies, I just been sitting here in tears off and on the whole time. I've been wanting to say something and I couldn't even get my thoughts and my words together. I had the emotions was just tripping over each other. But I just wanted to, before we end this call, I have to thank you all so much. And thank you again for inviting me and doing this. And even if you do it every month, I'm right here.
Yes.
Thank you, Mama T.
Thank you, Mama T. We are happy to have you. Yes.
Bless you, Mama T. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. My cheeks are hurting from smiling so much.
That part.
Yes. Any other closing remarks? I think this is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
I think this is so beautiful because I know for me, sometimes it's challenging and hard for me to find spaces of Black women who aren't in that space of, oh, well, if you do that, then I gotta do this, or well, I'm gonna compete, and it's hard to find those spaces because that takes a level of work, internal work, unlearning, unpacking, decolonizing yourself, and that's hard work. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for doing the work so that we can even have these type of conversations and spaces, because it's so necessary and vital now more than ever. I mean, it's always been necessary, but I think now more than ever, because the shift is happening in a lot of different areas in different ways, both like on a physical and also like a spiritual plane or whatever, if we want to get in that. Just to have a safe and affirming space for Black women, just for us to be and exist, and like let your shoulders down, and like, I love that for us. And I'm so thankful for this community, and yeah, y'all are gonna see a lot more of us more often.
Amen to
Yes.
that. Amen to
Yes.
that.
That's a
I
Yes.
love
Great
you
job,
all.
ladies.
I
Great
definitely
job.
love you all. Thank you, Ninah, really for pushing us and getting everything coordinated. We changed the
Thank
date
you
like
so much,
15
friend. 15
times.
million times, but it's
And it's all right.
Together.
And that is all right. It ended up being perfect.
That's right.
Yes,
It was the right
Always,
date. That's
yes.
right,
it was the
Jones.
right thing.
That's right.
And with that being said, thank you everyone for having a seat at our table. We'll be back soon.
Yeah.
We will be back soon.
Before
We'll be
Yeah.
back
2029,
soon.
we'll be back.
Yeah.
About sooner, because this needs to
This
be
was,
reoccur.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very much
Yeah,
so.
we're not gonna wait another 5 years for this joint.
No, we're not doing that. We're not
I
doing
mean,
that.
because life is
We're not
life
doing
then.
that. And I'll make sure to respond, in 1 to 2 business days, not 3 to 4 business months. You know what I'm
Or
saying?
3 to 4 business years, Ninah.
That's been my resolution for this year, hey.
I support you, Ninah. It'll be fine. All is well, and all will be well.
Yep.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank y'all
See
so
you,
much.
love
Love y'all,
Thank
bugs.
ladies.
you. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.